What's up, guys? It's your host, Spartanic Arts DXD, back with another high school DXD related video. And today we have What If Issei Was Betrayed, part 15. If at all possible, let's try to hit 300 to 400 likes for this video. And if you guys want to know exactly when I upload / my upload schedule, click the little blue button right next to the subscribe button or join my channel membership today. It'll be the first link in the description, the first link in the premiere, which some of you are watching right now, and also the first link in the comment section down below. This episode is actually crazy. I was so passionate and had so much fun recording this. It was such an entertaining story. Part 15 is crazy. But without further ado, let's go and thank my balance breakers and Juggernaut Drive members: Lachlan Yates, Aunt Lewis, Cool Ninja 12, Nate Ammo, and Nooga Booga Ooga. Thank you so much for becoming a balance breaker / Juggernaut Drive member. I really do appreciate it. Seriously, thank you. And I also upload early releases on my Patreon. So with that being said, thank you to my Patreon members: Smells Noise, Lachlan Yates, Godkiller, Dragon33171, Mark Bacon, Lord Fluff, and Just_Zeke. Thank you so much for becoming a Patreon member. Without any further intrusion, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get right into... Oh, wait. We hit 100,000 subscribers. And I will be uploading... We'll have a whole week of uploads because that's what everybody voted for. So yes, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into part 15. Chapter 17. Issei got to enjoy his night with his little sisters. Once they had fully woken up, they got to enjoy dinner. He had gone to bed, not feeling anxious. He wanted to sleep alone. But Lilith cuddled up to him. He wasn't going to deny her the luxury because he knew that he had denied her every time that he had sent her back to Kyoto from Tokyo. He was pretty sure Lilith knew this and was making sure that she could spend as much time as next to her Oni-chan. Luckily enough, Kano had passed out from excitement, as this would be the first time they had got to see Issei fight after he returned. It was something the little Kitsune was looking forward to. She would always boast about her big brother figure, but all she had was the stories he told. Now everyone could see he would back it up against the two Parages. However, his opponent would not satisfy his urge for battle. He would need to hit up a base. When all of this was over, he needed to find ways to get to Urias, but not only that, he would need allies to get past his 4 horsemen. Apparently, Lilith could feel his distress and she fidgeted in her sleep. "Shh, I'm sorry," Issei said. As he stroked Lilith's hair, "I didn't mean to disturb you." He cuddled closer and she snuggled even more to him, still sleeping, as he kissed her on the forehead. "You know, I'm not sure if I ever told you that I was sorry for pushing you away. You are one of the best things that has ever happened to me, Lulu-chan, and tomorrow you will see me stand on top. I am going to make you proud, Lulu-chan. You'll see," Issei says. That's how his night had gone. It was peaceful and he slept freely. He wasn't anxious about the battle either. As he fell into his dream, he found himself on an astral plane. He looked around. He could not sense Drake, not Lilith, who should have been next to him. He sensed nothing. Even worse, he could also feel nothing as he moved his hand to touch his face, but he didn't feel it. "What? I can't feel my face," Issei says. He was confused by all of this, and he noticed that he could not feel the plane that he was standing on. "What's going on?" Issei says. "Hello, Red Dragon Emperor," a deep voice spoke. Issei turned around and saw him in his armored glory. "Urias," he growled. "Amazing, isn't it?" Urias says. As the place became filled with necromorphs, it made Issei get on the defensive. "You think this is a joke?" Issei says. "A joke? I don't consider my work to be a joke. I just told you that it's amazing," Urias says. "What is your purpose for making them? Attacking innocent people and turning them into those things?" Issei says. "Chaos," Urias replied. "Chaos?" Issei questioned. "And war." As he stood up and walked towards Issei, each step he took, he grew taller or Issei grew smaller. He wasn't sure which, but Urias towered over him immensely. "I enjoy war. Embrace it. It brings chaos, and where there's chaos, there is fear. And fear of others is so intoxicating," Urias says. "So what do you fear?" Issei says. "Nothing. Unlike you," Urias says. "What?" Issei replied. "Issei Hyodo, son of Garo and Miki Hyodo, adoptive son of the Yokai Queen, Yasa, grandson of the Hataro Hyodo, adoptive brother of spawn of Orphis Orboros, Little Orboros Hyodo, and the Yokai Princess Kino. Am I doing well so far?" Urias says. How did you, Issei get stopped? It gets better. Love of Minerva Orland, Invigil Leviathan, the Valkyrie of Rosvisa, the Harris of the Phoenix clan Ravel Phoenix. Perhaps there's more. Oh, but what is this? Childhood sweetheart to Irina Shido. I bet she must have grown to be a beauty, Arius says. Don't you dare touch her, or any of them, nor my friends or family, Issei says. Ah, yes, friends. You are the friend of Kiba Yuto. Strange how he is your best friend, but you continue to call him by his last name. You're also friends with Gasper Valade, Genshiro Sanji, Riser Phoenix, Zenobia Corta, Byoko, Arthur Pentadragon, Ko, rival and brother to Volley Lucifer. So many count, but with so many friends. I'm sure you have many enemies. After all, you are the student of the yokai captain Ryoga. You have no right to say his name, he growled. I bet that must sting. Watching as he became one of the necromorphs, one of the best ones, might I add. Thanks to the synthesis of the powers of the Phoenix clan, I was able to make the ones that are capable of regeneration. I bet you have already seen how they've operated, haven't you, Arius says. No, I haven't, but I would classify them as hunters. They seem relentless in going for their prey. At least that is what the paranoid soldiers have said about them, Issei said. That's a good name for them. You know what's even better? I've advanced them, Arius says. No, Issei said as he began to pale. I can see it now. Imagine your friend. He was a prototype. I bet you that he still roams at one of our bases. Would you have the heart to kill him? Issei stops. How about this? As the plane changed to show all of his friends, girlfriends, family, they're smiling but look closer. Issei did. He noticed that the girls were with the other guys. His friends were smiling for them. They weren't smiling for him. It's like the Trihexa told you. The worst pain is the one that comes from within. As Issei had to watch, the girls were about to kiss other guys, just like Rias did on that night. He felt the pat on his shoulder and looked to see Devlin. You see, man, they found new flames. You're not needed anymore, but you could stop if you let the flames of your revenge go, Devlin says. Revenge, Issei said? Yes, be with your girls. Make love to them. I know, I will. Unless you want that to be your future, pointing at the girls kissing new men. No, Issei said. What? Devlin replied. You think that everyone gets to frolic off into the sun yet after the work that I've done, forgetting about the peace that I fought for? Where are the people like him out there? Pointing at Arius. I'm not looking for revenge. I'm fighting for peace to save mine, Issei says. Is that what you believe? Devlin replied. It's what I know, because if I don't do anything. He looked back at the girls with their new lovers. The lovers began to turn into necromorphs and began to attack and kill the girls. His friends and family. Issei kept a neutral face as the slaughter happened, but a tear did roll down his cheek, and then he looked at the dream of the Persian of Devlin. That's going to be my future, as he began to manifest a Frit. So in the raiding game, I'm going to send a message. Now get the f*** out of my dreams, both of you! Ifrit roared and the waves of flames washed over the area, burning away the Persians of Devlin's and Urias, the necromorphs and the corpses of the loved ones. Issei looked around, and the place had become an ashed wasteland that was around him. The flames still rolled off his body. He was unfazed by them, but he put his head into his hands. There's always someone or something that just wants to see his world in despair. A world that Issei did not want to happen. A reality that he was fighting to prevent. However, nothing comes easy. He understood that the hard way. He once thought that getting into the supernatural, he could rank up and gain his harem. That's just not how the supernatural world works. There are going to be hardships. There are going to be betrayal of allies. He had seen that the first hand he brought back into the world because of betrayal. He used his perversion as a mask, but part of his still longed for a relationship. It's what hindered him from advancing his relationships. He remembers that there were times where he could have lost his virginity, but his heart wasn't in it. After all, he opened up, and when he did, he got burned again. He began to see how cold this world was. He really just wanted peace and began to wonder if it was possible. After Rizavine, he thought it was over, but the necromorphs appeared and so did Arius. He wasn't sure if someone else would come after Arius, and if he died, he didn't know how long peace would be sustained. He felt some thumping on his chest, but when he looked down, nothing was there. However, the thumping continued on. They were not painless. They were small thumps. In addition to thumps, it felt like something was squirming on him as well. He took a sharp breath and woke up. The thumping and squirming still continued and looked down to find Lilith was the one heisting his torso and he to let go of her. She stopped squirming but now relaxed and looked at him. Oni-chan was squeezing Lilith too tight, Lilith said. I'm sorry. I was going through some things, Issei said. Is it from the rating game that you will be in, Oni-chan? Somewhat, Issei replied. Oni-chan's going to win, Lilith said. I know I will, but it's the thought of losing my loved ones that scares me, Issei says. Including Lilith? Yes, including you, my little sister. Why would that not be my loved one? Issei says. Because you have sent Lilith away, and Lilith was not happy about it. Was that what you were dreaming of, Lilith-san? She nodded. That was my voice heard by you. What do you mean? Lilith says. Before I fell asleep, I was saying sorry for always pushing you away. I was being selfish and never thought I would affect you because I always visited. Lilith says. I meant Lily-chan. Issei says. I know. I'm just thinking of how things would be different if Lilith didn't follow you. You know, I think about that too. I wouldn't want to lose you. It's why I'm going to win this fight and win this war. Lilith believes in you, Lilith says. I think we should get up, Issei replied, but Lilith wants to sleep. You woke Lilith up. Then you can sleep and I can get ready. As he got out of bed and picked up Lilith so he could carry her as she slept, she nuzzled into his neck and went back to sleep. While he went to the bathroom to brush his teeth, there was all going to be because he didn't want to wake Lilith again, until he had to. After all, it was early, and at least it was early for Lilith, so he decided to walk around the palace. He decided to head to the roof, and always felt that being high up would give him some peace of mind. As he ascended, he could feel Minerva's presence up there and was curious why she was up there. His curiosity overtook him, so he opened the door to find her sitting, just looking out at the early morning sky. So what are you doing up here? Minerva says. She never turned to face him. I could ask you the same thing. I came up here to think. Then great minds think alike, Minerva says. She patted the spot next to me. Walked and sat down. Issei walked and sat down. When he did, Minerva chuckled at him. What? Issei says. Nothing. It's just that you look more like her father than Big Brother. Issei said. What? Minerva replied. I'm just reminiscing. I mean, some would say that my perversion would not make me qualified as father material. Well, they didn't get the chance to know you, and frankly, judging a book by its cover is so annoying, Minerva says. I know, I've been there. Remember? I'm just a pervert to society. Not to her, nodding at Lilith, not to Invigold, not to Kano, not to Yakuza, not to your other wives, and certainly not to me. Well, only in the bedroom, Minerva says. You act like that too, Issei replies. I want to please my man. It's why those girls acted perverted with you. They wanted to please you. I don't know what made them turn a switch if they are still the same with their new men. What was the point of leaving you? Minerva says. I don't know. But it does make me wonder if someone else that found you, or rather someone else that you would have taken interest in instead of me. You mean like a pretty boy? Please. Looks aren't everything. Those are probably men out there that are jealous of you, Minerva says. Like Matsuda and Modahama, Issei says. Who? Minerva replied. They were my perverted friends back in Ko. I sold them my before I left. Well, that's too bad. I could have learned some things as for a try, which made Issei laugh. We have the internet for that, true. But as I said, people are jealous of you. They don't have the balls to do what you did, Minerva said. And what's that? Be honest about their feelings. They could never do things that you did, but they will fantasize about it. Jealousy is not a good look, Minerva says. Issei replied. It's why people of the modern world hide behind a keyboard. They talk and talk, but they can never walk the walk. I mean, you're pretty thick-skinned, Minerva says. How so? Issei replied. Well, look at how often you've been called a pervert, but you have never been deterred. If you have a disagreement, you would likely settle it. Whereas if you look for people that shield towards them, and when someone disagrees with them, I mean, look at Devlin and those boys. They think they can face you. It's why they don't want to use your boosted gear. They fear you, and they will lose. They will wallow like all the jealous people out there, Minerva says. Ha, maybe, Issei replies. Here, let me take her, gesturing to Lilith. She doesn't like you, Issei says. Oh, we have been bonding. Since you said some kind words about me, and she already threatened if I hurt you, she will find a way to kill me, and I like to keep living. Plus, I love my time with you, so you're not going to be stuck with me for a long time. All right, Issei says. Handing Lilith over, and it was a surprise, she knelt into Minerva's neck. Huh, guess you're right. I told you, bonding. As she patted Lilith's back, so what's your plan to win? Oh, I can't tell you that. You'll just have to watch, Issei says. I'm sure your friend with the glasses taught you something. Yes, Sikivera did. My brain not be as smart as hers, but I can come up with plans of my own, Issei said. So I've heard. Kiba talked about how you looked leadership. When you guys first came to Kyoto, you're not as dumb as people think, Minerva says. Well, that was thanks to my training in the underworld bound to Valena Gremory, something that many people don't know about. She had helped curb my perversion to develop a gentlemanly behavior and learn about the underworld's history and the Gremory clan's history, Issei says. To make a better suitor for her daughter, it's no wonder you felt hurt by her actions that night, Minerva says. Yeah, it's also why Serzex told me as well. She loved me like a son. In one moment, she forgot about me and threw me away. I also loved her like a mother, so for her to do that, I understand, Minerva says, so I will be leaving before you. Issei replied, oh, we know. You don't seem anxious about it, Minerva says, because I know what I can do. They are underestimating me. So that gives me an advantage. I've seen enemies continue to do that. Volley did it, and it allowed me to bring the fight to a draw, but it would have been my loss. He was going to use Juggernaut Drive against me, and I gave him his respect. He sealed away the past carriers, mine. They saw that I have a different path and sacrificed themselves for me to be resurrected again. There's still so much that I would have liked to say. I'm sure you would have, Minerva says. No, I don't think you do. You see, Elsha told me that I needed to unlock my true potential, which was just Rias's breast, but I have been without them for a while. So what is my true potential, Issei says. I would say it's your courage, Minerva replied. Huh? Issei said. Look at the enemies you have faced. You still went in and defied them. Even though you were likely to die, of course, your former mistress your perversion as rewards. You still didn't back down. In several hours, the factions and its people are going to witness the fall of the Opie Dragon. For someone who looks much more dangerous, someone much more dangerous, someone that becomes a beast when it's back against the wall, that will lay down the grenade just so his loved ones can live to fight another day. You think that any of those people can do that? No, they can't, Issei replied. And when you face Arius, you have people that clear the way for you to him, Minerva says. I just don't want any of you to die, but I will trust you guys to get stronger and win those battles. You put your faith in me, and I will put my faith in you. Minerva leaned over and gave him a kiss. I know. Now, this one needs to sleep in a proper bed. Kissing Lilith on the forehead and beginning to head towards the stairs. Can I ask what you were doing up here? I was thinking about the people that I have lost. It's like you said, you're going to send a message. A war is coming. I don't want to lose you, Minerva says. Like how you lost the person that bestowed the Dragon Slayer magic on you? Yes, Minerva replied. Okay, Issei said. He nodded. He knew that the person had been close to Minerva, likely a former lover, as he knew it was the first time with her she wasn't a virgin. So are you going to talk about me, about you and Kuroka? I had to get a taste of her before you did, Minerva says, smirking back at him. Seeing how she has nothing else to say, Minerva left the roof with Lilith sleeping in her arms. It left Issei alone with his thoughts as he pondered about what's next. You can give her what he cannot, Drake says. And what's that? Issei replied. A child. You saw how she held your niece and Lilith. She loses you. She will likely give up the chance of a family, Drake says. I didn't think of it like that, Issei replied. Well, you're not much of a thinker, Drake says, making Issei chuckle. Well, you're right about that. But you have grown, despite what others try to take away from you. And your mate is right. People are jealous. Hence why they try to take what you rather than going out and claiming something of their own. However, there is something that you said, which I think this battle will help with, Drake says. And what's that? Issei replied, your potential. This is going to be the first time that I won't be joining you in battle, even when you use your sub-balance breaker. I still feel like I am with you, but this time the fight will be your own, Drake says. I understand, Issei replied. Hey. Don't be mopey. I will look forward to seeing your title bestowed upon you. I wonder what it could be. Maybe something with your flames or your lightning. So many possibilities. But we know one thing. You won't be named after the body of a woman. No more of that He growled as Issei laughed again. Yeah, you're right. No more of that. So you want to talk about that dream of yours? You saw that. That's weird. I couldn't feel you. I know, but you handled yourself. You didn't fall into despair, but you try. But you and them made a good point. It doesn't look like revenge. You're trying to avenge Ryoga. But the slaughter that happened, you know it will happen if you do nothing to curb Arius. Your woman was right. You would sacrifice yourself so that others would live. It is quite noble of you, partner. A trait of yours that no one can take away from you. Selflessly sacrifice yourself, and even if it means that you won't have a happy ending. However, if you do that, do me a favor. And what is favor is that, Dreg? I feel like I owe you so much that all you have done for me, Issei says. If you ever think of dying, make sure you have a family, so I can pass myself on to one of your children. If not, I will die with you, Drake says. Drake, Issei replied. No, I'd rather stay by you or one of your kin, so I may protect your family in your absence. If you have no one, then I will die with you, Drake says. You can go to Kano or Lilith-chan. If I die, my soul would be in their boosted gear for me to talk to them. That is understandable, but for now, let's take Crom Crunch's word into account in battle. Hold nothing back, Issei says. Exactly, and remember that I will be watching. With that, the communication with Issei and Drake cut off, and Issei felt content. He gave his thanks to his partner again before he got up and stretched his body. The sky had been lit in the rising sun. He breathed the air as he walked to the ledge, looked ahead, and gritted his teeth. He knew that someone out there, Arias and his horsemen, were staring back at him. Not at him, but all the factions. At his home in Tokyo. And his friends and family, they aimed to threaten their peace and not a reality that he could live with. He went back downstairs to prepare himself. He figured that the girls were at breakfast, so he would see them later. Issei showered, using his unscented body with wash and lotion. He did this to prepare for his senses of Konako and other yokai. He didn't know the name of her boyfriend. He dressed himself in a black muscle tee, wrapping his forearms and backs in his black badges. He didn't need his armor, and he was able to dragify any part of his body. Plus, his dragon skin was quite durable on its own. He wore black pants with extremely red light armor in his thighs, knees, and calves. The armor was flexible and not as clunky, so it was breathable and it helped stealth. He wore light black boots as well as a Hakumino belt to strap Morisama and Seisis to them. Sorry. Heading to the dining hall to see everyone, of course, Kano was excited again to see it decked out. She ran to give her big brother a hug, which he smiled and rubbed her head. Morning, are you excited to fight, Kano says. No, not really. It's really not about the fight, but the one ahead, Issei says. But you said, I know. We deal with the problem one step at a time, Issei says. Morning, dear. How are you feeling? Fine. Just wanted to get this over with. You certainly look like it. I always have to be ready. You seem troubled about something. I am. As he sent Kano back to her seat, it's about the dream I had. What happened? It was Arias. He was in my dreams. He was telling me how he was doing all of this, and he asked if I was willing to kill Ryoga. Arias said that he's still out there roaming a base. He's gone, dear, Yakuza says. I know, but he deserves a proper burial and for that body. But he's one of those hunters now. Hunter? Yakuza said. Damn. Okay, I'm good. Well, after the raiding game, take a breather. I will talk to Ajuka or you can meet with them. I'm sure it's on your time. Yakuza says. That's fine, Issei replied. I suppose I'll be busy for one day, Yakuza said. And why is that? Well, getting a quick kiss from Issei as a greeting. With Issei's arrival, there will be people wanting to unite Issei to their clans, offering up money, women, and other things to persuade him. Remember, he is not with the underworld, Minerva says. Zex and Graphia will handle those of the underworld, but it will be expected, even more so after he wins today, Asa says. Your pride as a dragon will be shown again, Issei, Orpheus says. Yeah, keep those two out of trouble, pointing at Kano and Lilith, both stuffing their faces with food. Camille and Lilith said, as everyone laughed. Try to eat more slowly or you'll choke. Okay, as they swallowed their food and drank some juice to wash it down. Oh, Issei, I have Ascalon prepared for you, as she summoned the blade, Minerva said. The blade looked much sleeker than before and denser. With a slight serration on the blade, when he grabbed it, his dragon aura resonated with the edge of the blade. The handle was firm, and he felt like he could swing it much more effectively. Hold on to it. I won't be needing them for this fight. As he handed the blade back to Minerva, I'm guessing that all three look like that. Yes, I figured you wanted something different. The metal of the blade that goes all the way down to handle, and it was wielded to its guard. Make sure that it doesn't break. That's good. I'll have to try them off against Kiba. Iri and Zenobia. I'm nowhere near the level that I am with Arthur, but I will have to test it out with him as well, Issei says. Very well, Minerva says, sending the blade back to her personal dimension. Issei spent his time with the girls, watching Lilith and Kano train a little. Yakuza was mentioning Kano and Kiroka was not present, since she was with her team. He did not know who would escort him to the raiding game, but his answer was received. A slight silver circle with grammary emblem appeared. Hello, I am here to escort Issei, Graphia says as she appeared through the magic circle. She was in her maid outfit. So it's time, Yakuza said. It is. Are you ready, Hyodo-kun? As she looked over at Issei, Kano and Lilith frowning since he had to go. Yeah, where's Zeratron? Issei says. She and Milikis are with her father. Sirzex had his hands full at the moment. So who is taking Gremory and BL projects if you're here? Issei says. I do not know, but I know that it wasn't Sirzex himself, but I'm still taking it into consideration of Ria's seeing area, but that won't happen till after the game, which is possible. I'd like for you to bring her to Rias after the game. Why me? Issei says. A lesson to show Rias on what she missed out and think of her actions moving forward, Graphia says. Well, we have to see how I am doing after the raiding game, Issei says. I think you'll be alright. I can sense that your power has grown, and I know that you wouldn't have challenged or accepted this challenge if you knew that you weren't going to win. In the past, you would have because you were quite reckless, but you have grown more than people have given you credit for, Graphia says. Thanks for the backhanded compliment, Nissan, he chuckled. Issei says, she's Oni-chan's Nissan? Does that make her Lilith's Nissan too, Lilith says? Only if you want her to be. He's right. Family just keeps getting bigger, Lilith, rubbing her sponsal head as Lilith begins to think how her big adoptive family could be. I suppose we'll be seeing you later, Graphia says, turning her attention back to Yakuza, of course. Though the girls need to bathe, they just finished their training. Very well. Issei? Hang on, Issei said. He turned back to Kano and Lilith. Go get ready. I'll see you both after the raiding game, okay? Okay, Kano said. Oni-chan's going to win, Lilith said, pumping her fist. I intend to, Issei says. He ruffled their hair and walked to Graphia. Okay, ready. Graphia gave a nod and created a magic circle, which took her and Issei away. The others did wave him goodbye. Kano and Lilith knew that they couldn't hug him as usual because their stink on him could give him away. It was something that they learned about the stealth Kuroka from Minerva. Now let's get you two ready, Yakuza-san. As the young girls walked off with Yasa and Orpheus, while Imigol and Minerva stayed behind. We have some time to check the area for any other bases, Imigol said. I agree, it was troublesome enough, saying the teleportation seals all over the place, where we detected suspicious activity. Shall we? Imigol says. Of course, Minerva said, placing her hand on Imigol's shoulder, and they teleported to their first location. Now we're in the Aguirus territory. Zenobia was waiting for her mistress to be ready. As she was dressed in her new outfit, she had gotten rid of the church battle and settled for something that was slightly more armored and was constant to Fafnir. In contrast to Fafnir, she wore a black leather jacket with gold trim over a black bodysuit that had gold trim as well, with the black boots, in addition to having some purple gems at mid-thigh and her waist, where she wore a black cape with a gold trim as well. Her suit did mesh with the showed cleavage as well. She had Durandal strapped to her back, since she would be guarding Rosvisa, but also Sikivera and likely Latia. She was pondering how the raiding game would go, and she remembered her short spar with Issei. He had the strength to back up his blows. She also knew that he could handle himself in hand-to-hand combat. She really wished that she could have talked with Kiba and Gaspar more about their mission that Issei joined them on. It would have given her a better idea, and Issei may have a game plan. She already had a feeling how Devlin may try to attack this, since the only film that Issei that had on was the previous time that he had been in Rias' Parage. I wonder what he will do, Zenobia says to herself. Ready to go, Rosvisa says. Yeah. As she looked up, and she could tell that Rosvisa was dressed in a black, big fur type outfit. The outfit was considered military-like black top, and the sleeves rolled up with her forearms. It was similar to Sikivera's outfit, but had a skirt that went to mid-thigh and wore a long black boots underneath. There was slight gold trim and some crimson accessory color. She also had black gloves and gold belt accessory. Unlike Zenobia, she had not holding any of her weapons. Okay, Sikivera should be, as the magic circle with the Agaress emblem appeared. Wonderful, you're both ready to go, Sikivera said as she, Olivian, Bafil, and Latia was there. Yes, Rosvisa said. Zenobia, what's on your mind? Sikivera says, seeing the blue-haired knight pondering about something. Oh, sorry, I was just curious about how Issei is going to be able to handle this raiding game. I don't know the extent of his capabilities and was thinking I should have asked Kiba or Gasper. No need for that. I already have a feeling Issei will handle them, Sikivera says. You do? Zenobia replied. Of course. I coached him in military strategies and other strategic thinking exercise. He had some capabilities from what I heard from your first trip to Kyoto, Sikivera says. Yes. His leadership skills saved us that one day. He was a bit different after he came under the underworld for the first time, Zenobia says. According to Rias, her mother coached him to be better suited in society of the underworld, hence why he was able to not speak so openly about his perverted thoughts, Sukivera says. Well, not all of them, Rossweiser replied. He didn't want to go peep on girls during that trip. He used his dress break on me twice. One of those times were to escape detention. It's natural, from what I have noticed. He reverts his perverted tendencies when he's bored, and when he has gotten bored in detention, and you should have offered to train him on magic to keep his mind occupied, Sukivera says. How would you know that? Zenobia replied. Because I could tell his thought process. When I trained with him, he would think about Minerva, and when he was bored, like the girls, she also tended to instigate his perverted tendencies. Well, they were attracted to him, so make him notice them. They react to his interests, which made Zenobia blush, and she remembered what she did and felt stupid for insulting him when she was part of the problem. Don't think of trying something, Latia, Sukivera says. What do you mean? With a slight blush, she was worried that her cousin caught on to her. I could see it on your face. You think that you can seduce him and he will become interested in you because you can make his perverted dreams come true, Sukivera said. And why not, Latia says. What can you possibly do that Minerva hasn't done for him already? Besides, that won't work with this Issei, Sukivera says. You made him like you, Latia says? On the contrary, Lady Latia, Issei has become more entwined to the other aspects of his dragon side, such as fighting. This match won't sedate his need to fight. He also finds it more attractive when a woman is true to herself around him and is not offended by him. If he's putting his out there, you should do the same, Avilion says. Which you showed when you kissed him, but don't go seeking if you are aiming to gain something from him, Sukivera says. The only thing I aim to gain is a piece of his heart. I will put my heart out there so he knows that I'm interested in him for who he is, Latia says. If you say so, Sukivera said, shrugging her shoulders, while Latia glared. Latia was going to show Sukivera that she could gain Issei's trust and his love, and do what Rias could never have done. Appreciate him for who he is, and hope that she engaged him. She knows of his other suitors, but in time she'll have a man. She knew her cousin would be on top to help her, so it was up to Latia to prove to Issei why they are compatible, a job easier said than done. Well, let's get going, Sukivera said. I'm sure the other faction leaders are going to pouring to see this fight, as she created a magic circle and they all transported it to the Aguirus Dome. And now we are at the Aguirus Dome. The city of Aguirus has been buzzing with tourists from the moment that the raiding game was announced. People were ecstatic to see the Red Dragon Emperor. There were advertisements, but after everyone had seen the new Issei, they updated his image. For the Phoenix clan, business was booming as people, especially the children, wanted new Crimson Dragon merchandise. Of course, Ravel had done a recall on everything that had Opie Dragon to it. She wanted to get rid of the name completely. Even if the tag had the Opie Dragon name to it, she got rid of it. Then, this did piss people off, but she was reimbursing those that lost the Opie Dragon gear. The profits from the new merch and the Phoenix tiers helped overshadow the chunk of debt that they had been because of the recall. Ravel had taken an extremely big risk on this, and it helped the ratings for the Crimson Dragon were better than the Opie Dragon. My, this place is bustling with excitement, Yakuza says. She wore a traditional kimono, however, she was not showing as much cleavage. It's been a long time since I have been here, Minerva says, since I helped to seize it from the Alliance. She wore a blue capito dress with the gray stockings underneath. Let's hope no one recognizes us, Invigold says, wearing a white Quapoto dress, black stockings underneath, and she was holding Lilith's hand to make sure the girl didn't run off because of her curiosity. Lilith and Kano were talking to each other, or at least Kano was talking. Lilith was taking in the series because this was the first time here. Orphis simply floated alongside Yakuza in the traditional Gothic lily outfit. They don't care. Issei is making quite a buzz for them. Remember about that incident, Orphis says? Yes, it's been a little more than a year since they have seen him. It was supposed to be the head for the leaders' Prex box, Yakuza says. Wait, isn't that Gasper? Minerva says, pointing at the Daphne, who is with another blonde vampire, a young white-haired girl. It is, but I do not know of the others, Invigold says. Let's introduce ourselves, Minerva says, but rather than walking, Minerva used her magic to teleport Gasper and the other two girls to their location. Huh? What? We were just... Gasper is looking around. As he looked around to see the group of ladies, Minerva-san, Invigold-san, Orphis-sama, Yakuza-sama. Wait, did you teleport us? It seems you didn't forget my magic. That's good. Nice to meet you, Gasper. I thought you were being ready for the raiding game, Minerva says. About that. I'm part of Kiba-sama's Parage, along with Tokusa gesturing to the white-haired girl. Hello, it's nice to meet you, Tokusa says, giving a curtsy. I'm Tokusa, Kiza's Bishop. Why aren't you two assisting him, since he's under Rias' Parage still? Oh, just because he's under her Parage does not mean we are obliged to her, like we are with Kiba. So we decided to not... and just enjoy the game like any other spectator. I am hoping that I can see more of what Issei-senpai can do, Gasper says. I'm sure you will. And who is this? Minerva says. This is Valerie Tepeus. She's my childhood friend. It's nice to meet you, Valerie says. You have an interesting magic. Thank you, Minerva replies. It does annoy Issei from time to time. That's because you teleport his clothes off of him. Immigold says. She deadpan. Well, even though Gasper said our names, we should introduce ourselves. I'm Minerva Orlin, Minerva says, and my name is Invigold. She was not going to say our last name in such a public place. Gasper has spoken about you two, Tokusa says. Hopefully good things, Minerva replies. I'd hate to have to teleport you somewhere unconventional. She can do that? Gasper says, looking at Immigold. Yes, Immigold replied, answering almost emotionlessly like Orpheus or Lilith would, making Gasper a little worried. We were about to head to the leader's press box. You're welcome to join us, Tokusa says. I'm sure Element is waiting for me there, Valerie says. Then I guess we, Tokusa says. Lilith, wait, Immigold says, as the dragon lily wrenched her hand from Immigold's and began to run off. She didn't get too far as Minerva teleported Lilith into her arms, which confused the lily as she snuggled into the mage's arms. Let Lilith go, Lilith says. Not until you tell us where you were running off to, squeezing Lilith to her bosom. Lilith wanted to go see Kachan. Kachan? Which Lilith nodded as Invigold and Minerva's eyes widened as they looked at each other. Phew, you should not need to worry about them. They are perfectly fine, but I suppose I should go greet my fellow leader. Come along, as she began to walk in the direction that Lilith had begun to run in. Quit squirming, Minerva says. We're taking you to her, she instructed Lilith, who stopped when she noticed the direction the group was walking in. For the demons, they could sense an immense amount of power or holy energy that was also heading in their direction. The amount made them shiver, but they knew that it was not an enemy. They continued to walk until they came into a presence of Michael and Gabriel. Accompanying them were several humans, which they did not recognize except for two of them. Kasan, Lilith said, as Minerva sat down her brunette woman, and that was Angels who looked in the direction of Lilith's voice. My baby, Mickey says, crouching down to hug Lilith, who ran into her arms. Hey, baby girl, have you been good, Goro says, crouching down to hug his adopted daughter as well. Lilith says, nodding as she could see her parents again. It's an honor to see you, Michael Dono, Gabriel-sama. Gabriel Dono, Asa says. Greetings, Asa Dono. How are you, Michael says. We have not seen you since the meeting. I hope there have been no problems for you, Gabriel said, missing the glare from the orange brunette woman that accompanied them. No, these two kept me busy, Yasa says, as rubbed Kano's head, who gave a smile. I'm glad to hear that, Michael says. Lilith-chan, I'd like to introduce you to some people. This is a grandmother. Can you say hi? Lilith looked at the steen gaze of Hiratu, who looked quizzically back at her. Bachan? Lilith says, tilting her head, which only made Haruto laugh, confusing the others. You shouldn't laugh at her, Haruto-san, Mickey said. I'm not laughing at her. As she bent down to pat Lilith's head, she just reminded me of when I first met Issei. Even the head tilt. Ha! You're right, Kasan. They are siblings after all. So it's expected to their mannerisms to be similar. Goro said. Bachan, can you rub Lilith's head? Lilith says. Sure, as she did what the girl asked, which made Lilith have a small smile as she loved receiving affections from her family. These two over here could be considered your uncle and your aunt, Lilith-chan, as he guided Lilith to Toji and Mizuki. Hello, giving a wave. You must be excited to see your brother in a fight, Toji said. Oni-chan will win, pumping her fist, which made the adults laugh. We were heading to the leader's press box, Waiko says, as were we, Yakuza replied, until Lilith sensed her mother's presence. Meanwhile, Minerva and Immigold were greeted by the leader of the DXD team, Dulio. I don't believe that we got to speak properly at the meeting. My name is Dulio Gastaldo. I'm the Joker of Lord Michael, Dulio says. And I'm Grishelda Corda, the Queen of Lady Gabriel. Corta? Are you related to Zenobia? Minerva says. She's my ward, Grishelda says. I see, Minerva replied. It's nice to see you again, Arena-senpai, Gasper says. You too, Gasper. Nice to see you again, Tosa-san. I hope to see you're doing well. You have adjusted your outfit. Her outfit was a combination of a ninja-like samurai with a combat suit that had openings at the tights. However, they were usually covered by the capes and hung over her waist. She had armor on the back of her hands, around her stomach, and she wore a long-sleeve white kimono with the jacket and her sleeveless black top that had a flower petal embolized on the top. She did not have Hunteclair with her, but the katana strapped to her waist. Thanks. This is a more casual one. I have another one that is armored, and I've been spending more time with Metatron and also wanted something geared to my Japanese roots, Irina says. I'm Immigold. Nice to finally meet you, Immigold says, holding out her hand. Finally, Irina replied, you're Irina Shoto, the first wife, making Irina blush. Oh, I don't know, Irina says. You're the first one that he marked, which caused Irina to instinctively put a hand on to her mark. I can certainly see why, Minerva says. She whistled as she looked at Irina's figure. That picture Issei had, he didn't do her justice. Of course, Issei had an old picture of Irina, but things definitely changed for the reincarnated angel in the past 18 months, just like it did for Issei. Back then, she was more litty, but now she seemed more athletic, while keeping a voluptuous figure. Minerva would say that Irina is comparable to Zenobia's figure, since Minerva had met the former exorcist at the meeting. Thanks, Irina says. As one of her hands went to her katana, she was always skeptical of these two, when Issei first told her about him. No need for that, Minerva says, seeing Irina grip her katana. I'm just saying that I can see why you two fell for each other. I fell for him long ago, Irina says. He told us. You were his light during your childhood days. You're going to make his jaw drop, girl, Minerva says. I don't think that you want to bet on it, Minerva says, smiling with mischief. What? Irina replied. If she looked over at Immergold, she would have seen Leviathan shaking her head. I bet when Issei sees you, his jaw will drop. He'll think that you're a dream come to life. If I win, Irina says, the loser would owe the winner a favor. Nothing more, since it's a simple bet. I'll have to decline. Gambling is a partisan of greed, which made Immergold breathe a sigh of relief. Very well, Minerva says. If you are done talking, we must get going, Valerie says. Not before I greet my girls, speaking in a fatherly tone. How are you both doing? He gave hugs to both Minerva and Immergold. He loved them like daughters. When they started to date Issei. Quite well, girl-son. You know you can call us by our titles. Minerva, Mickey says. Sorry, I'm just not used to that yet. Same here, Mickey said. It's no worries, dear, but in time, Mickey says. Shall we get going, Michael replied. I think this will be a fun match. We're going to see what Issei can do, Orpheus says. Ha! That boy is something else, from Irina has told me. He's doing quite well for himself, Haruto said, as she looked over Minerva and Immergold. Haruto was holding Lilith's hand and Kanoto's hand. Since Kano had explained that Issei was also her big brother too, Haruto did not mind if she has more grandchildren, plus Miki and Garo discussed about her living with them, so she could see the children more often. It was something that she heavily considering that she would like to spend time with her newly acquitted daughters. I agree, he has truly grown, Toji says. Our Irina knows how to pick him, Mizuko replies. She certainly does, but we will have to be led if we don't get a move on. Lady Gabriel is right. With more people shuffling in, it will be hectic to get in, Grishilda says. Yasuo pulled Mickey over to the side. What is it? Mickey said. You're going to love the rings that he's picked out. Yasuo said. You've seen them already? She gasped. Indeed. He spent a fortune, only for his best woman. I have to bring Mizuki on this. Do you know which one's Irina's? Nagisa said. Oh, Mizuki, come here. Taking your friend as the elder woman gossiped, while Toji and Goro looked at their wives and shrugged. Ha! So many foods to try, Dulio said. Not now, Dulio. A shame, Dulio replied, as the group continued along to the press drop designated for their leaders and their guests. Now we're with the Citri group. They were taking in the excitement of the raiding game. In addition, Sona even brought along her waitress that was very into Rhea and Issei's relationship. The group had come to learn that her name was Monoko, which they found interesting that her name was close to Rhea's. Makuto was also extinct the Belith clan. Of course, Rhea already knew this, since she was a frequent customer. Since Makuto's interest was in Rhea's and Issei's relationship, she got along well with Momo. She and Momo were the biggest gossipers of Rhea's crush, plus Makuto got along well with Rukuro. Rhea had ever felt so embarrassed, but there was nothing that she could do about it. She likes Issei, and they spent time with him, only attracted to her more. Man, everyone's looking forward to this, Sanji says. Indeed, but remember, people consider Issei to be a hero, and they haven't seen him in more than a year. They also feel like he's getting the justice that he deserves over those who hurt him over a personality flaw, Sona says. Plus, we also get to see him in action. The only ones that are Kiba and Gasper, Sanji said. That's right. Oh man, we should have at least asked Gasper if he could tell us anything, Rukuro said. But that would ruin the surprise of what should be a good match, isn't that right, Brother Rigol? Brina says, as she rode off the shoulders of a werewolf. Huh, clearly unfazed, Luke did. Well, you are right about that, Grim Reaper, as the Citri turned to meet Volley and Team Slashdog. Volley, Sona says? You think I would miss my rival's grand fight? I want to know what I'm dealing with. Unfortunately, we finished a mission, so we missed the press conference, Volley said. Same here, how did it go? Tobio says. Well, there was no drama from Issei, but he definitely opened up, Sanji said. What? Oh, I missed it. Just great, Natsume says. She was dressed in a business suit, most of Team Slashdog except Lavinia. Haha, sucks to suck. Bird brain, now you'll never know what your boy toy's like, Koki says, causing a vein to appear in Natsume's head. Not now, Natsume, Tobio says. Last thing we need is an argument out in public. Save it for the press box, Tobio says. Oh, it seems like the gang's all here, Rival says, as Ruvel, Ravel, Ubaluna and his knights, Calamine and Sutras along with the pink-haired woman came forward. The others took a peek at Ravel's outfit. She was dressed in a red military jacket. She worn over what happened to the dress that was white on the front and black on the sides as the dress went to the mid-thigh. She was also wearing red heel boots that went to mid-thigh. She was wearing black shorts underneath so no one would get a glimpse of her undergarments. Her outfit acquainted her figure and beauty. You look nice, Ravel, Momo says. Thank you, Ravel replied. At least we know who you're rooting for, Sanji says. He laughed with some others. Also, who are you again? His questions was directed at the pink-haired woman. My, I thought my name would have been told to you, but I am Ronin Belagor. As they took their appearance from her cherry blossom hair to her horns as the head of the high-cut formal dress she was wearing. I am an associate of the Phoenix family as well as Ravel's mentor. She's a former raiding game champion, Sona says, alongside Badiz and Devlin's brother, Desor. As she turned to Riser, how are your pawns doing? They're awake. They made us come, so the rest of my barrage still with them watching the game. Riser soars. Well, we better head to the press box that is reserved for us, Volley said. So we're going to the one with the leaders, but I think my sister will be all right. I could do without her screaming in my ear, Sona says. That's right. She sees Issei as a little brother, doesn't she? Tobia said. I believe the majority of the Mao do, though Ajuka-sama keeps his emotions well hidden. We better get going. People are starting to stare, Rebel says, as the mini-group nodded. Well, they are in the presence of people that helped them win a war, Rigon said. Let me just inform my sister there's been a change of plans. As she created a communication circle. Hello, Seraph says. Hello, Onisama, Sona says. Sona, where are you? We're heading to the press office with Team DXD and Volley's team, Slashdog, along with Ruvel, Ravel, Riser, and his Queen Knights. Ah, well, you're going to miss out. Lechon's grandmother is here. What? Sona says, getting the attention of the others. What is it? Saji said, only for Sona to put a finger up as she composed herself. We'll have to greet her after the game. This is quite a surprise. I did not think she would come. Sona says, well, she did. Lilichan practically loves her already. She's super cute. She's jealous. I believe that she's learning a lot about Issei's extended family and the supernatural, Seraphal says. I see. Well, she can entertain you. I'll meet with you after. Take care. You as well, Sona, Seraphal says. The communication circle dissipated. So what was that about? Sanji said. It appears that Issei's grandmother is here for the game. What? Momo says. Oh, Volley replied. I didn't know he had a grandmother. I suppose we can introduce ourselves later on, Tobio says. That's what my sister said, Sona replied. You just had to call me Volley, Kuroka says. You needed to be debriefed, kitty cat, Byoko says. Oi, Kuroka replied. He's right. It's a good thing that we have Theo in your absence, but we still need your skill set at times, Kuroka. Yeah, waving it off. She also had no one mentioned her essence being mixed with Minerva's. I wonder what she is like, Rebel says. We won't know till after the game, as the group continued on. Now we're at the DXD press box. Secret and her crew were already there conversing with Sire Org and his barrage, KOKO, and his team. Secret was wondering what Sire Org was thinking, as she knew that Issei did not consider him much of a friend for supporting the infidelity against him. What's on your mind, Sire Org? Seaver says. I'm just trying to figure out who will win. Issei is a wild card, but I know how Devlin fights. Issei will win. That's all you need to know, Seaver says. You sound confident in that, Sire Org replies. Because I am. What kind of friend would I be if I didn't support my friend? Making Sire Org wince at that. And besides, when he wins, I'll make sure that he keeps my cousin off my back. That is a terrible thing to say, Secret. After all, we are family, and it was you that exposed my secrets, mind you, Latia says. If you didn't, you never would have made a move, so I did it for you, causing Latia to and her mimic her cousin's posture, crossing her arms or bust. Looks like the gang's here, as she sends to Volley and the others to enter the Prex box. So we're the last ones. The others are the leaders, Prex box, so I would say, Janine says. I wonder how long this will take. Who knows? It depends on who wants to play with their food, Gross says. Maybe the Red Dragon Emperor will get it over with, Cronus says. It depends on who the king is. Either Rias or Devlin. It's likely Devlin. That man wants control, KOKO says. I agree, but I don't think he will get it. Isekan has a way to turn things into his favor, Tobio says. You are right about that, Cromcrunch says, as he, Tanin, Bova Tanin, and Tiamat entered. However, Cromcrunch was topless, displaying his battle scars for all to see, and surprised of the new scar on his left side of his face. Cromcrunch, Volley says. Striking at the White Dragon Emperor, Cromcrunch did. Where did you get that scar? Oh, this little thing. Why, from the Red Dragon Emperor, of course, as the eyes widened and dropped. Of course, Ryoden licked her lips at this information. Why are you all surprised? Did you really think he was going to remain weak? He certainly showed me some new tricks. I commend your carriers, Albion. Albion says, for giving me such entertaining battles. But you had it a little easier than he did, Crumcrunch says. What did you do? They fought in the dragon's range. The whole day before Issei left his press conference, Tanyan says. The whole day, Tobio says? That's insane, Kaokeo replied. It's a good thing he had stamina and phoenix tears. It's been a while since I have been and cherish these two the most. The heavenly dragons are a path of assonance. Ha! Keeping getting stronger and keep giving me more fights. A pity that you like the White Dragon Emperor. He held back. If you want to win this war, you can't hold back. Changing from a manacle grin to a stern gaze to the DxD team members, that goes for all of you. Now, we're at the leaders' press box. The leaders had gathered around. Of course, many of them were surprised by the appearance of Issei's grandmother. They treated her with respect. After all, this was the hero's family. Well, most of them did anyway. Lila stayed very close to her new grandmother, while keeping close to her parents, and showered her with affection. Ah, thank you for coming, Sirzex says, as he held a giggling Iria, who played with her father's hair. It's no hassle. I am intrigued that we will see today, Michael says. After which, we will need to meet with Issei about his knowledge of the necromorphs. Sujuka says, let him rest after this fight. He will need it. Sirzex says, I am sorry to say this, but this fight may not quench his thirst for battle, Minerva says. What makes you say that? Odin replies, because he is a dragon. In case you forgot, they seek opponents, strong ones. I am sure how effortlessly he took down that fallen angel, both fallen angels, as he looked at Barkul's direction, who slightly sweated. What happened at the meeting? She whispered to Gasper. Issei-senpai made Barkul fall to his knees without touching him and forced Arion to his knees with a punch of his natural strength, Gasper said. Oh, Irina replied. She wanted to see him in battle and fight alongside him after the war was over. Maybe to go on a mission with him, Irina said to herself. Let's not remind Barkul of that, Azazel says. I'm sure you already figured out what he did on that night, former general governor, Minerva says. As did I, Shamazi said. I did too, Ojuka says. As expected from some of the smartest minds, Minerva says. Did Issei ever tell you that you didn't need to steal technology from the Gregor anymore, Azazel says. She frowned at that, but no matter to answer the unspoken question, Issei used the power of Great Red. What? That is preposterous, Odin says. How interesting, Zeus replied. We should have expected it. After all, he has made it his flesh and blood, Hades says. Indeed, Zeus replies. So these are the gods. Amazing. I believed in yokai and mountain gods, but this is something else. Oh, who is this? Zeus says. She is Issei-kun's grandmother, Michael replied, along with her and Issei's parents and Irina's parents who gave bows before the gods before them, Dulio said. Oh, and who is the little one? Haruta says, now turning her attention to Iria. This is our daughter, Iria. As she took Iria from Sirzex, I am Graphia Elusive Gremory. I am Sirzex's wife and big sister of Issei. As am I. I am a sister, not wife part. My name is Seraphal Leviathan, Seraphal says. How big of a family does my grandson have? Haruta replied as she turned to Mickey and Kuro. It's quite an extended family, Mickey says. How extended are we talking here? I was given 2 granddaughters, and now I learned that I have another 2 granddaughters, which I must say I will take credit for this one, pointing at Graphia. Not many of us can pull off silver-haired look. Well, you'll be surprised, Kuro says. Excuse me, my name is Milicus Gremory, Milicus says, giving a bow to Rato. It's an honor to meet Issei's niece grandmother. Another grandson? Well, I guess 2, since you are her husband, pointing at Sirzex. Milicus is our son, not Sirzex's brother, as Harato's eyes widened. I did not expect that, Haruto says, making some laugh at her shock. It was similar to see Issei's reaction after he learned that Milicus was Graphia's son. Sorry we're late, Zectodius says, as he and his wife appeared through a magic circle. More guests, Zeus says. It's to be expected. They are the family of the Mao, Hades says. Odin had shuffled off to prepare for what to see. While he did not show it, he was very intrigued with how much power Issei had. After all, he was promoted to ultimate class by bypassing the high class status. Oh, another grandson, Haruto says. No, this is Shizex's parents, Kuro said. Hello. May I know who I'm speaking with, Vanilla says. Kasan, this is Issei-san's grandmother, Shizex says. Zectodius Villel were surprised and were prepared to bow, but were stopped by Mickey. Please don't bow, stroking Lila's head, Mickey said. But we must. We harmed your child and you were supporting your own child. We have done the same. It's understandable, Gross says. We apologize to Issei. When he came to see Iria, he never said that he forgave us, but we didn't ask for it. We just wanted a chance to apologize, Valena says. Ha, that boy won't stay down about it for too long. Besides, he probably understood that you were doing what any parent would do, as she was tilting down Irina, who was cooing happily as the winds calm, Haruto says. It's what he said when we talked to him, but still heard of neglecting someone from our clan, Victoria says. We are aware, Goro replied. We hope that we can be friends again, even if our children are no longer together. We're sorry for your grief, and we had also caused you, Valena says. We know. For now, worry about the safety of your daughter. You think Issei will kill her, Victoria says? No, we're saying that because of this fight. Issei is not going to take things lightly in a fight, Goro says. He's correct. And we don't know the underground fights that he has been in. Minerva, causing the witch to groan. Looks like I won the bet, Ingvigold says, making Minerva groan again as she owed a favor to Ingvigold now. We'd better get to our seats. I believe it's going to begin soon, Zerzek says. Haha, finally I get to see my boy in action for the first time, Haruto says as she took a seat while carrying Erina. Lilith went to sit in Haruto's lap and Kano sat on Haruto's right and Grafia sat on Haruto's left with Milikis next to his mother. It seemed that the kids were growing to feel the grandmotherly love that she possessed, although Milikis had it with Valena. She didn't necessarily look like a grandmother. The human adults sat next to the kids as well. The leaders took their seats next to each other, except Yaxis sat to her daughter and Seraphil sat next to her. Valerie and Lemnia, a converse, sat with Gasper and Tokasa. Minerva made sure that they sat next to Irina, and Invigol was along for the ride. Of course, she had Orphis on her lap. Oh, it seems we came late, the random person says. It's an honor, Shiva Dono. Atena Dono, please let us join. It's about to start. I believe the majority of this room are in favor of the young Red Dragon Emperor to win. Am I correct? Aten says. You would be correct. Please join us, Naradono Makasama. Welcome to the East Yokai faction leader. Welcoming the East Yokai faction leader, Yakuza says. Thank you, Yakuza. It's an honor to see your surrogate son in action. He had helped tremendously with removing the bases in our area. Ah, Minerva-san, Invigol-san, I hope you are doing well. Why aren't you joining Issei-kun in battle? Greetings, Norisama, as she gave a bow. Invigold, not because Orphis had no intentions of moving. Hello, Norfasama, Invigold says. We did not join Issei as per his request that way. He would only have to worry about one thing, Minerva says, and what's that? Or says, his prey. As they all turned towards the newcomer. You just couldn't keep away, could you, Nynx? Hades says. And missed the chance to see my future husband, Nynx says. What? Haruto replied. Irina sent a glare towards Minerva that said one word. Explain. Who are you people? Nynx says, not recognizing the humans. They are Issei's parents and his grandmother. The others are Irina's parents, Minerva says. Excellent. My in-laws. I am Nynx, the primordial goddess of darkness. While Mickey and Gro looked at Minerva. He is a goddess too, Mickey says. I know you named after a goddess. Minerva, but an actual goddess as well. What did Issei do? Goro says. What? You never told them? That's quite naughty of you, To. Perhaps I shall explain, Nick says. No need, Imigol says. I can do it. Miki-san, Goro-san, Haruto-san. I was once diagnosed with sleeping disease that would put me in a coma-like state. I was able to wake up because of the manifestation of my sacred gear. This got Ajuka's and Azazel's attention. After that, I was happy to have met you and you take me in, but on a mission, it came back and rendered me useless. Issei-kun made a deal to the Nynx that if she could help me, that he would be her betrothed. Issei-kun accepted the deal so that I would not fall under the effects of the disease. Huh, that sounds like something he would do, Haruto says, as she turned towards the Nynx. Just because you made your fiancé doesn't mean that I'll be easy on you, girly. Haruto says, what? Nynx replied. You coerced him into that position. That's not love. Maybe if you helped out of the kindness of your heart, he would have been more considerate of you, Haruto says. Nynx just gasped in shock while Minerva laughed. However, I will give you a chance to make my grandson love you after all. I'd like to see more great grandbabies like this adorable one right here, tickling Irina's cheek, making her giggle. Then she turned to Minerva, Irina, and Immigold. You three, I'm expecting them before I pass. Don't think you're off the hook. Hey, we've been trying, Minerva says. It's the first wife that you need to be talking to, pointing at Irina, who was appalled. You're not trying hard enough, Haruto says. She snorted before she scooed Iri again, and who was giggling in her surrogate great-grandmother's arms. Grafia and Milikis smiled. His area was happy. She surrounded a family. Nynx grimaced, but she sat Imigold, who offered her a smile. Orpheus turned to a goddess with what could be described as mischievous smile, and put her hands on and clapped them together. Minerva also sat down while Arianet relaxed to focus off her now. She already knew that Issei would bride his time before he started thinking about having a family of his own. She ascended. She couldn't be the first to it and made her regret not doing so. When it was just the two of them in the mansion, she remembered those days like it was yesterday. It was like she was with her husband. She didn't mind the others that wanted to share with him. She had also been through that before, so this was nothing new. However, she was anticipating this day, the day that she would get to see him again, in person. It's time, and not a screen. With everyone settled in both press boxes, people crowding into the stadium, the screen above the stadium lit with a blue-haired man. Welcome, welcome! My name is Nard Grandin, your announcer for today, and oh my, has it been a while since we got to enjoy a battle such as this one. The crowd cheered as this was a moment they were looking for. Of course, the press boxes dimmed the noise, so they weren't affected as much. However, everyone was just on the edge of their seats. They wanted to see Issei fight. It's what they all came for. Now, today's participants are the very own Team DXD, who is in attendance. As the camera panned to the DXD's press box, let's give them a hand for what they've done for us. Clap it up, folks. This was to give praise to a team, as usual whenever they had been in a rating game after the Trihexa incident. As you could see, they are not joined by their leader. He is with our leaders who brought them together. Please give a round of applause to them, as the camera panned to the leader's press box and the crowd cheered them as well. The leaders stood up in acknowledgement as their people cheered them, not just in the stadium, but in their respective factions. Now, as you know, their leader is Dulio. He is the pillar of the factions, as the crowd cheers especially those in the heavens. After all, it was an angel that the pillar was now. However, this brings us to our grand event. You'll see the former pillar has come to battle again. This brought out the loudest cheers from all. Now then, I have a special guest with me today, and with the special privileges. He was able to make it here. He is a former rating game champion, and he is the brother of one of our participants. He even faced the former pillar. Let's give a hand to Jasher Biel. The man made Mickey and Goro stiffened as they remembered this man well. He was the one that kidnapped them on orders from Rizavim, while Toji stiffened because he remembered what they've done, because his subordinate had fallen in love with the relative of this man. The same subordinate, Masumi Yagati, was reincarnated in intact heaven, injuring Toji in the process. Mizuki rubbed her husband's hands as she knew what he was thinking about. Thank you, Nod. The last time we were here commentating, it was the Gremory Parage versus the Biel Parage, Desor says. Yes. What a fight that was, but now things have changed. The Gremory Parage has lost some of their members and have joined your brother's Parage, and their opponent was one of their own. And he still would be if my brother could have just learned to let it go. Oh, are you saying that you're going to rooting against your brother? No. But I am not. I am rather neutral in this, Desor says. And we like to be present. Our referee, the Katri Piaomain. This gained more cheers and wolf whistles from the men, while Zazel grimaced. After all, that she was his woman now, since helped him overcome his stupidity of what he had done to Issei. Thank you, Nod. I'm sure the battle will be one to remember, Piaomin says. I agree. Now, let's bring out our fighters from one side. We have the home team, a combination of two Parages looking at their wrongs and get back to win their column. Both have helped us in the war against Quillapoth in different ways. Give it up for the Parages of Rias Gremory and Devlin Biel. There were still cheers for the Parages despite what happened, still loud but not as deafening. The Parages looked around, smiled and waved in crowd. However, the moment was short-lived when they looked across the stadium to a dark tunnel where their opponent would come from. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. He was once known as the Opie Dragon, but has transcended to the one as we know as the Crimson Dragon. The former pillar of the factions. The Red Dragon Emperor, Issei Hyodo. From the dark tunnel came a wave of flames that were near the tunnel back down and get synced. However, they realized that the flames did not generate any heat. For those that could see directly into the tunnel, or at least deep enough, depending on the angle, they saw the burning eyes of Issei's avatar, Ifrit. Arion gulped audibly at seeing the demonic-looking dragon creature. His knees buckled a bit. The flames dissipated and everyone noticed how there was no damage to the tunnel walls. They realized that the flames were just an illusion. But what they didn't know is that the user could have made those flames for real if he wanted to. As the flames disappeared, Issei emerged and cheers were thunderous to them. Their hero returned. However, rather than look at the crowd, Issei stared at his opponent with an indifferent look. From the press boxes, Sanji cheered the loudest for his friend's entry into the stadium. The others also cheered, or acted too cool to cheer. Like some of the guys simply smiled. From the leaders' press boxes, Issei got a standing ovation from nearly everyone. Iria was being carried by Grafia, which Lilith didn't mind because Hiroto got to carry her. She pumped her fist in her big brother, as did her younger kids all over the crowd. Iria, knowing her uncle, said, "Ungta," but Grafia knew what she was saying. Uncle. Iria was reaching for the screen to her uncle. "My, what an interest. Now, as you know, this is an all-out battle, so all members will be on the field. Now let's see what environment our fighters will be battling in." As the screen shifted through so many locations to virtually send the fighters until finally it landed on one. "It's like we hear ourselves rumble in the jungle." From the leader's press box, Yakuza and Urena laughed, along with Minerva, who was chuckling. "What's so funny?" Odin said. "Well, if you know, this just gave Issei the advantage. It actually didn't matter what stage the battle would be held, but this one has given Issei the most favor for him to win." "Oh, Odin, you certainly didn't think Issei would sit idly by, did you?" Minerva says. Odin simply grumbled, as he knew that Issei wouldn't sit back and do nothing for a year and a half. After all, the images of those burnt bases, crisp bodies of necromorphs proved that. He wanted to believe that Devlin and his Paraj could get the job done, but from how Yakuza and the Necrophore laughed, it was not happening. He spared a glance at the woman that supported Issei and saw Minerva smirk at him, and he knew that he better prepare an apology to Issei. The crowd cheered as the fighters were transported. However, Rias watched Issei as he paced. The scary thing about him pacing was that he never took his eyes off the opponent, not for 1 second. Devlin himself also wondered if it would be enough. Everyone else could see it now. This Issei was a caged beast, waiting to be unleashed. But you could not tell because of how calmly he was pacing. But the trained eye, like the leaders, could see it. On the screens, the fighters were transported to the jungle on different halves, but for some reason, the Gremlin and BL Parages felt uncomfortable. The reason for this was because Issei knew where they were and staring in their direction. They could not see it because of all the fog of the jungle, but they could feel it. With Issei, he sat on his knees, as if meditating. He was in a stasis in his hands at the ready. "Now, each side, you have 5 minutes to prepare. You cannot advance into your opponent's territory. Good luck," Nod says. "Tomiishi no Yaku," Issei said as a pulse of energy went out and Issei rushed into the jungle, likely setting up traps on his side. Now we're at the DXD press box. Hearing the technique, Sanji cheered again, which the others looked at him in confusion. "What is it?" Sona says. "He mastered the move I'd been working on with him before he left Ko." "What technique was that?" Folly says, needing to prepare himself for the fight with Issei, an improvement of one of his former ones. With a smirk, he knew that Issei's newly improved Palawingle. However, he wasn't talking to the breast anymore, so it didn't matter if the opponent was male or female. Others pondered on what he said and were going through their experiences with Issei to figure out. They knew that they could rule out dress breaks and no one stripped naked. Meanwhile, the Grammar and Belparages were planning. They sensed an energy pulse, but nothing after. "Alright, Konako and Augustus, you're going to be in charge of tracking him," Devlin said. "Akino, Rourke, and Arion, you're going to take the skies. And you see it, you can find him. Kiba, Lunar, Moriyama, and Kadase split up into 2 insides on the box. And Rias, Azia, Akia, and I will hang back. From what we know, he has perverted techniques. His dress break and polylingual. He also has flame blaze," Azia says. "If he uses that, it will expose his position to us, so we are an advantage." And Azia, "Why are your dragons shaking?" Devlin said, looking at the 4 evil dragons Azia tamed. "I don't know," Azia said. "Issei possesses a dragon that is higher rank than them. They feel Drake's aura, but Issei's aura as well. That could be what gets them spooked. It's either they fight or submit the dragon before them," Kiba says. "Well, Azia, can you get them to calm down? We'll need them in case this slips by," Devlin says. "Akia, head out and set up perimeter traps," Rias says. "What are you doing? It's just one guy," Devlin says. "You have your plans and I have mine," Rias replied. "Rias, I'm the king in this, so I'm in charge. Akia, stay where you are. You can control your pieces, but I control mine. Akia, you're with me," Rias says. "She's the boss," Akia said, shrugging her shoulders. She followed Rias, clearing up to set up traps that could detect Issei if he approached. "Well, alright. The rest of you move out," Devlin said. "So which one of you ladies would like to go with me?" Lunar says, as he walked to Moriyama and Kadase, smirking with confidence. "I would," Kadase says quickly, as she left with the mark. Man, I fucking hate Kadase, Lunar, and stupid. I'm sorry. I can't help myself. I'll continue. "Why would you want to run into him?" Moriyama says. Come on, if we're lucky, we may run into eBay, Kiba says, and then Moriyama says that line. I'd like to phase him without interference, Kiba says. Don't you want to win? As they vulture to the other edge, we're not going to win. The hunt is on and we're the prey, Kiba says. A sound went off to signify that 5 minutes were up and the raiding game had begun. Unfortunately, Issei heard everything and knew to go after what he was locking in on first of his targets. The fallen angels took to the sky and he searched for him. Anything, Arion says? No movement. What is the matter with you, Arion? Huh, Arion says. Your legs haven't stopped shaking. Are you scared? Rourke says. What's happening? Arion said. As they looked above them above them in different areas of the field, there were few magic circles, 6 to be exact. Guys, something's happening. Look up, Akeno said. She communicated to her team. However, only Kiba recognized as Issei's mega circle, and you remembered Issei's destructive move, Arif's breath. As he called it, he knew this wasn't going to get any better. Shh! That's Issei! We need to take cover, Kiba says. What? Find his magic signature, Devlin says. Somewhere in the jungle, Issei watched as he was going to make the jungle even more of his favor. After all, it was hard for him to get burned. Ryosus Kazan, Issei says, he whispered, and he knew by the time they could even locate his position, it would be tough to face him in a burning jungle, and he could evade them using the smoke as cover. From each magic circle, a giant fist of mana emerged, firing the 3 on Issei's half and the 3 to opponent's half. Incoming! Kiba says. He grabbed Moriyama quickly. Boom! Boom! The magma fist exploded, destroying the jungle and beginning to set things on fire. Akeno, is everyone okay? Akeno says, as she was using her sleeve to cover the smoke rising. Azia and I are fine, Devlin said as he coughed. Unfortunately, her dragons are injured. He looked to see Azia was healing her dragons, who were roaring in pain as she was desummoning each one as well. They got their first take of Issei, not knowing how destructive he could be. Now in the DxD press office, they were impressed by that move, especially Tanin. What he did not know is that Issei made the move to honor him. Since he was the Blaze Meteor Dragon, the move itself can be translated as Meteor Volcano, which expected at first to get off the volcano upon impact. Whoa, never seen that before, Sanji says. This game is over for them, Timeout replied. Why do you say that, Timeout said, Org says. Because Issei is a dragon, Cromcrunch replied. He can breathe just fine in the smoke, Tanin says. At this revelation, they now understood why Issei started off with an area-wide attack. Now we're back to the battlefield. Rias and Akia were coughing. The force of the fist did throw them off their feet, but they were otherwise fine. Aki, are you okay? Rias said. Yeah, Akia replied. Aki and I were fine. Kiba, what was that? She communicated to her team while coughing. That was Issei. You still think he's the same pervert from back in Ko? Kiba says. Why didn't you tell us about this? Devlin said. Because he never showed it to us on the mission. All Gasper and I saw were the 2 or 3 moves that you would see them coming. This is something new to me too, Kiba says. The fire is also spreading. We won't have enough time to put it out, Akeno replied. Shh. Konako, Augustus, were you able to track him at least? Devlin says, no. We got a spot where we activated his magic, but there's no one here. But then noticed something. Augustus was gone. Augustus? Augustus? Konako says. She looked all over for him, but she could not detect him. She was worried about that. I can't find Augustus, and this smoke isn't helping me pick up his scent, Konako said. You 3, up in the air. Tell me if you see anything, Devlin replied. The 3 fallen angels looked around and the smoke was making it hard to see the things above. I got nothing, Akeno replied. Same here, Arion says. This is not good, Rourke replied. Konako, you're going to need to fall back. You're all alone out there. Right, as she took off, but what she missed was a black barrier that faded away. It had been concealed in the smoke. When it dissipated, it showed Issei holding Augustus in a sleeper hold. The yokai tried a feeble effort to reach out into Bard and Konako, but it was useless. If one could see closely, there was a slight white glow to Issei's arms and hands that the yokai was choked out and became unconscious. Now in the DxD press box, out of nowhere, the light wings of the Divine Dividing emerged as Albion spoke out. He was able to use it physically. Not good, Albion says. What is it, Albion? Look at his hands closely. That's our power that he's using. Damn! He was able to use our divine divining ability in a physical sense that he can touch his opponent and drain them of their energy. However, instead of having it, it is taken at a slower rate. Crumcrunch, did he ever use something like this against you? Albion says. Ha! This is the first time that I am seeing these type of moves. It just goes to show he was holding back on me, but that black barrier, I have seen it before. From where, Sona says. It's one of Apophosis's moves, Crunch says. This brought worry to some of them, as Issei was capable of using evil dragon's moves. Now back to the battlefield. Issei dropped the body of Augustus as the white glow on his hands faded away and he frowned a bit. Still need to work on dividing claw. Some more. That took longer than expected, Issei said. He had waited for Konako and Augustus to arrive after he unleashed Rizavin Kazin, shadowing himself as he knew they were trackers for the team. So when they arrived, he used the sounds of crackling and flames, a burning branch to following to tackle Augustus and activate his dividing claw technique to start draining him to render him unconscious. However, he noticed that Augustus' body did not dissipate. So you're using the ability of yours to nullify the rating game system, just like your brother did against Riser, huh? Devlin, you're going to get your team killed, Issei said, as he picked up Augustus' body and chased after Konako. He knew that there was a safe patch along the way, so that Augustus wouldn't get burned, but after he had a trap here, after all, he knew the damage his attack caused without hindering his traps. He could not say the same for their traps, and the smoke would keep concealed from the ones above. Finding a safe spot, he dropped Augustus abruptly and continued on after Konako as he shimmered that disappeared from the cameras. Now back at the leader press box, Gasper gasped as he saw what Issei had done. He had seen it before on their mission with Kiba and Issei. He looked over at Minerva and Imigol, who were watching calmly until he stood up. "Since when can he camouflage like Blitz?" Gasper said. Oh, you saw that," Minerva said. "Yes," Gasper said. "Well, they taught him. He studied them, so he can learn from them. Who are you talking about?" "I have never heard of this Blitz," Elmian said. "Blitz. He's Issei-senpai's other familiar." "Issei-san has 2 familiars," Irina says. 3, actually. From what you said, Minerva, it means that Issei-senpai is known to use Flair's silent step up. Flair's silent step. "Correct," Minerva replied. "So Issei can hunt them down freely? If he's able to camouflage and walk around silently, no wonder you had no worries about him," Tokusa said. "You said he has 3 familiars?" Greyfear replied. "That is unheard of," Serzek says. "We have other things to worry about," Ajuka continued, "such as getting Augustus out of there. It seems Darcio taught his brother how to use Worthless on the rating game system, or he figured it out himself. He's lucky that Issei-kun was able to relocate him, otherwise he would have been burnt to a crisp," as he began to lead the press box and head down to the tacticians. How odd. Despite being unable to battle, Augustus has not left the field. This looks like an apple doesn't fall from the tree here, Desahir, as the former champion kept a neutral face. On the inside, he was seething at what Devlin had done. If he was thinking that he had a chance against Issei just threw a monkey wrench into Devlin's plans right out of the gate. The smoke prevented the fallen angels from seeing him above, and he definitely had stealth capabilities to get within range of a yokai. Now it seemed the cameras had lost sight of him, so the audience could not see him. Konako had been heading back to her base, which was damn near destroyed, but so was Issei's. She just didn't know it, and Augustus were barely in his half and didn't venture further to find out. However, she was able to detect an attack coming right from her and brought her arms up to block. "Ballistic knuckle," Issei says as he coded his attack arm in his dragon aura and punched at Konako. "Ah!" Konako says. She was sent flying away, crashing through several branches. In the sky, the 3 fallen angels heard the crash and looked around. "Guys, what's that?" Akano says. "I don't know. We haven't had to run into the bastard," Lunar says. "Neither have we," Kiva said. "He's not here either," Devlin replied. "Oh no, Konako!" Ria says. "One of your guys better investigate." "I'm on it," Akano says. As she was about to noob, Issei had been watching them through the smoke, and he created a light spear out of his dragon's aura. He decided that he was going to clip some of the raven's wings. He threw it at Akano, but he was not anticipating the save. "Look out," Arion says, as she shoved Akano out of the way, but received damage to his left shoulder, both wings on his left side. "Ugh!" Arion, Akano says. Being unable to fly, he began to fall. She went after him. Meanwhile, Rourke was tracking where the spear came from and dove to that location, as he knew that this is where Issei would be. Issei was able to detect this, but he did not want to face Rourke just yet. He wanted him and Kiba one-on-one, as he felt they could give him a fight. Devlin was also up there, but he knew that only Rourke and Kiba would fight him with honor. Issei ran and jumped with the dragon aura and fused as Rourke burst through the smoke into the clearing. "Ballistic knuckle," Issei says. Rourke barely had time to put his arms. He was blasted in towards a tree. He barely dodged as Issei used another dragon fist, destroying the tree. "I found you," Rourke says. "It's not your time," Issei replied. "I'd like to think this," Rourke says, dashing forward with a sword slash, which Issei caught in between the blades of his sasis, and sent a kick towards Rourke's head, which he used his other arm to block as it lodged his sword from Issei's stasis. "You're in my way, stand aside," Issei says. Rourke could see in Issei's face the same look of indifference was still on it. He did not care who he had to harm to obtain victory. "You know I cannot do that," Rourke says. "Unfortunately, it's very rare I have to switch targets," Issei says. "Ha! Kiba was right, you are a hunter," Rourke says. As he stood ready with his stasis, "Are you going to not call for help?" "I think the others are busy," Rourke says. "I don't want any interruptions," Issei replied, "so I'll have to handle this quickly." He held up a hand. "Dark field barrier." A black barrier surrounded the two of them. It made their energy signatures hidden from the others. However, Issei ensured that the cameras could still see the action. "What did you do?" Rourke said. Instead of giving an answer, Issei dashed forward and their weapons clashed. Rourke was instantly on the defensive. Every jab that Issei shot towards Rourke, he deflected. Issei began to implement kicks and knee strikes. They were also blocked. Some of Rourke's slashes cut up Issei's shirt and into his skin. However, Rourke wondered if he got through to Issei's skin because Issei showed no reaction. If Issei was getting frustrated, he didn't show it because it was the interference that would give Konako time to recover along with Augustus. So he took it up a notch and applied Dragon's Aura to stasis and collided weapons with Rourke. The pressure of their weapons was becoming taxing. Rourke needed to get on the offensive. He went for a slash at Issei's left shoulder after a parry. However, Issei blocked it, catching the blade in his stasis, and went for the knee strike with his left leg. As expected, Rourke blocked it, which allowed to twist and kick Rourke in the jaw with his right leg. "Oh!" Rourke said, staggered as he lost his weapon. Issei did not let up, as he went to a reverse grip and covered the hilt to the hammer Rourke in the head, putting him down to the ground. Issei walked over and picked up Rourke's blade, as he was setting his bearings again. When he stood up, Issei kicked him back down, but he was defiant and proceeded to stand up again. This was short-lived, as Issei kicked him in the head, causing him to land a punch on his stomach. He was beginning to push himself off the ground, but searing pain erupted from his left shoulder. "Ah!" Rourke said as Issei had stabbed him with his own blade deep into the ground. The crowd watched grasped in shock. "A teacher once told me that you should not hold back against your opponent in terms of physicality. I am stronger. I was expecting you to use some magic. Maybe in a spar, you and I can go again and we can kick it up a notch. Although I wasn't fair, and I had to use my Dragon's Aura to amplify my attacks." As he deactivated the barrier, "We'll do this again sometime," Issei said. With that, Issei took off the direction that Konako had flown in, but he didn't need to go far. She came from his left in the Shorin form, but wasn't much different from her original form as she had grown in the time that he was gone. The slash tore the front of his shirt to shreds and blocked another strike from her. "Where's Augustus?" Konako says. "Somewhere," Issei replied. "That's not good enough," Konako said. She began using Senjutsu's flames to strike, throwing jabs. Issei at first blocked, but he ended up grunting in pain as he noted that Konako had somewhat of a white aura as well. "Toki," Issei said as he activated his crimson scales, ripping the bandages of his forearms off for an added defense. Issei began to dodge, as he wasn't sure how much that her flames could do, especially when Toki enhanced. So to prevent that, he grabbed her wrist to stop the attack, but resulted in his head getting whipped to his left and making them let go. He threw a punch to get her back off a bit. However, there was blood in the water and Issei had 4 scratch marks on his right cheek. Konako saw that as her moment as she dashed in with punches and kicks infused with Senjutsu flames. It was forcing Issei to block by deflecting her wrist and shins. Those Senjutsu flames were capable of harming his dragon skin, and that was not something he could afford. "Sorry, Kuroka," Issei said as he drew his stasis, deflecting her blows, withstanding the pain, and then kicked her in the chest, making her stagger. It took her a bit to recover and get the wind back, but a blow to her ribs dropped her to her knee. Issei grabbed her by the neck and slammed her into a tree and stared at her coldly at her. She spat in his face and was kicking to get free, but Issei kept her out of reach, so her kicks barely made it to him. "I bet you like this, don't you, pervert?" Konako says. "Probably another one of your perverted fantasies that you..." As her eyes widened in shock, she looked down at Issei's left hand with his sigh and stabbed her in the eye and her stomach. She was shocked as the crowd, some even in her hand and center of her mouth. Blood spilled from Konako's mouth as she began to cough some more blood. "Let's go! She deserve it! Screw her, bro!" Okay, I'm sorry. Anyway, at the DXD press box, Kuroka was choking back at her own tears. After all, Konako was still of blood, even if they were disconnected. "Kuroka," LaFay says as she went to comfort her friend. "Come here." She brought her friend into a hug and let Kuroka let out her sobs, while the rest of her team looked on. Everyone else was saddened by what had transpired, except those that knew Issei. They knew that Issei did not just kill Konako in front of the live audience. However, if he did, at least maybe they got the message that that pervert is dead. Now back on the battlefield, Konoko could only look into the cold, unforgiving eyes of Issei. She coughed up more blood. She was shaking in fear of what was going to happen as she gasped when Issei pressed his sai further in. Senpai, Konoko says. Not anymore, Issei replied as he ripped out the sai of her stomach and then backhanded her away. Where did she crumble in a heap? Oh my god. Sorry. No, Augustus says. Augustus, wait, Rorik says. It was too late. As Augustus charged, Issei only turned his head, but Augustus could see his eyes. Those burning pools of amber, searing Augustus's soul. He felt as if it slowed down. Before he could realize what happened, it was too late. Issei sidestepped, charging the yokai, who caught himself to prevent himself from going headfirst into the tree. For Issei, he knew that Augustus was still under the effects of the dividing claw, making it easy to dodge him. Issei then stabbed him in the back of one leg and his sasis, causing him to fall down to his knee. He didn't stand a chance as Issei grabbed him, the back of his head, and proceeded to bash his face into the tree multiple times. Crunch, crunch. Rorik winced at the brutality that Issei displayed. Issei did and all so calmly, putting them down. He heard the sickening crunch of Augustus's nose being broken. For the audience, some might have thought it was cool. Some were a bit squeamish as it showed Augustus's bloodied face as the bloody intent on his tree. It was likely the Augustus that may have suffered a fracture in his skull from the blows from the tree. Seeing how Augustus was motionless, Issei dropped the body, not caring about his condition, and turned towards Rorik. Now, back at the leader's press box. Haruto winced at the brutality of her grandson displayed. At everyone else, Graphia clutched Aria's head as to her bosom to keep to her eyes and ears covered. Minerva, Gasper, and Imagol were calm about it, but Gasper did fidget a little as Konoko was once his friend. They were used to it. They had seen what Issei did to the necromorphs, so Konoko and Augustus were lucky that Issei didn't tear off their limbs. Still think he's a boy, Odin? Zeus says. Odin didn't say anything, as his words at the party were moot. This wasn't the same boy that indulged in his perversions. If Issei wanted to, he could have killed them, but unfortunately because of Devlin, they could not be pulled from the field. To make matters worse, the Junger were still burning. It would have been still some time before it got down there for 3. Now back at the battlefield, Rorik could not do much as he winched from the blade embedded in his shoulder. He could only stare at Issei, who was calmly back at him. He was in killer's mist. He also wondered why Augustus and Konoko did not leave the playing field, so he contacted the team. We have a problem. Konoko and Augustus are down. Problem is that they're not leaving the field, Rorik says. What? Rias replied. I said they're not being transported from the battlefield, Rorik says. That's not possible, Rias said. Damn it, Devlin says. Devlin, what did you do? Kiba says. Arion's shoulder is badly damaged. I couldn't get to him in time, Akakano says. Rorik, where's Issei? Devlin says. Right in front of me. As Issei began to start walking towards him. Where are you? Lars says. I don't know. It's hard to think with a burning juggle and a blade stuck in your shoulder. He could not say more as Issei stepped and hilt and driving it further into Rorik's shoulder. Ah! Rorik! Rias says. Rorik, what's happening? Akano replied. Akano, he's coming towards you, Rorik says. With a swift kick to the temple, he was knocked unconscious. This cuts off the communication with everyone else. As Akano was scared, now she did not know where Issei could come from. Arion had landed on his bad shoulder, and she was unable to get him in time. She remembered what Kiba had said. Issei had made them the prey. Akano? Arion replied. Huh? Akano says. He's here, Arion says, as he stood steady while thinking to himself, I will protect her. Work, Nissan, you'll see. He watched as the sky clouded in smoke. From the foliage emerged Issei, with the same cold look of indifference that he had held when they saw as he emerged from the tunnel. The scrapes from his bouts with Konoko and Rorik showed as he stared at the next targets. I must say, you have impressed me, Issei-kun. She threw some holy lightning in his direction. I guess not enough. She watched through the smoke as she knew that she hit Issei directly. She felt a charm of magic. Ryoso, Issei said as the spear of thunder shot out of the smoke and clipped the side of Akano's wings before she could prepare a defensive magic shield. Ah! Akano said, clutching her side, falling to the ground. He left the side twitching. Akano, Arion says, hobbling towards her. Ryoso! This time shooting Arion in his right leg, making him fall down to the ground. Arion! Watching her boyfriend crumble to the ground. Akano, as the electricity started speaking. Akano watched as Issei emerged from the clearing smoke, and she could see that she did to him as the electric scar on his lower half of abdomen an indication. You're not the only one who can use lightning, Issei says. There were slight twitches to his left eye. Your attack has gotten stronger, I'll give you that. So congratulations on damaging me. Is that why you tanked it? To see if you could handle it, Akano says. She began to drag herself over to Arion. Yes, to know how much stronger I have become. Your magic is no doubt on par with a high-class demon, so I give my respects to you. But now, as lightning began to crackle as he drew Morisama, I'm going to take my pound of flesh. People were enamored by the blood-red blade that Issei possessed. Now, at the leader's press box. So that is what you used your technology for, Azazel said as he looked at Minerva. Yes, Minerva says. I must say that is quite impressive, Azazel says. Thank you. Azazel wondered what Minerva else could do. He knew that the fallen angels had had to pay a hefty fine for her help to them. He could also knew that it was a package deal. If he could use Minerva's expertise, he could create some armor that their soldiers could use. More specifically, one that did not have armored specific gears. Do you not see what he is going to do to... And all you care about is how she used her technology to create that thing, Barkil says? Let it go, Barkil, Shimizu said. She chose this, and she must accept the consequences of her actions. What? Do you not hear yourself? What if it was your child, Barkil says? Then what I have done? Then I would have corrected and made her talk about her relationship problems without hurting someone else. Look at his eyes. Do you see them? He doesn't want to do this, but the arrogance of your daughter's partner brought this upon her and him. Barkil looked back at the screens through his anger that was not allow it. Through the indifference of shown in Issei's eyes, there was sadness. Now back to the battlefield. Issei stalked towards Akano and Arion. They were only a few yards away from each other. However, Issei struck fear into both of them as there was nothing else they could do. Please, Issei, Akano says. Akano, you have no right to call me that. The moment you insulted me, you lost every right. As he was upon her. Hey, you! As Issei kicked him away. I'll deal with you later. As he turned back to Akano. You know, it's interesting how you chose the fallen angel to be your partner, Issei says. What do you mean? Because, Issei does. As he turned onto her stomach, I'm the one that made you accept that you were one of them. And I was right. You're just like right there, Issei says. No, Issei, It was too late as Issei grabbed one of her wings on the left side. He pressed his knee into her back and she cried and begged for him not to do what he was about to do. Lifting Morisama up, he swung it down and the audience gasped in horror. Shik! Ah! Akano says. Standing on his left hand was one of her 4 wings. But he was not as done as he stomped the 2 wings on her right side, breaking them. Ah! As she sobbed before passing out from pain. Akano, Arion says. Now you! Issei said as he began to walk towards Arion. You owe my family an apology. What? I don't Arion said. I think you do. You called my mother up as he manifested my Ifrit, and ground became to combust with the step that he looked step forward. Please, I didn't mean as Issei stomped on one of his legs, causing it to be an unnatural angle. But you did. You didn't stop there. You said that my little sisters would become Issei said. Please, he sobbed, Arion says. But it was futile, as Issei stomped on his leg, but this time his foot was on fire, crushing more bones and burning as he gritted his foot. You also called my woman's... But this isn't what your girlfriend is, pointing at Morisama in Akano's direction. I'm sorry, Arion, as he sobbed. Don't tell that to me. Tell it to them, Issei said, pointing at Morisama outward. I'm sorry, continuing to cry. I'm sorry. He broke down, crying from the pain and humiliation. He could not protect Akano like he thought he could. Rorik was right about him. Now he did not know what to do. He had insulted the dragon's family and was paying the price for it. Issei did not do this because he took Akano away from him. It was because he stupidly went after his family. A mistake now he knew not to never do again. I told you I would make him apologize, as he was looking directly at the camera. For that, Kano and Lilith smiled, while Ayasa rubbed Kano's head, and as they knew that no one would ever insult any one of them as long as Issei lived, Yakuza was proud of his training paid off, and Minerva and Imagol were proud of what he had done. Issei turned back to wallowing Queen of the BL Parage. You better call your king, and tell him to deactivate his technique, or your friends will die, Issei says. Issei then ripped off the remains of his shirt, and threw it towards Arion, and it gave the woman who was watching something to look at. You can use it somewhat to help with your bleeding. As he began to walk in the direction of one of his last targets, Arion began to drag himself over to Akano and cried over her body. He could only contact his team and plead with his king. Devlin, Arion says. Arion, are you alright? Devlin, call it off. He has down, Arion says. What do you mean? Devlin nullified the system. We need help, Arion says. What? Who else is down? He cut off one of Akano's wings. I don't think my brother... Konako and Augustus are any better. breathing as hard as he was shifting in and out of consciousness. Devlin, deactivate the dim ability now! We don't need to. They just need to get back here, and Ozzy can heal them, Devlin says. Ha! What losers if they fall to such a pervert, Lunar says. Lunar-san is right, Kadase says. We checked his half. Nothing here. No shit. He's hunting us, Arion. Do you know which way he went? Kiba says. He went, and then he fell into unconscious. Arion! What do we do? Moriyama says. Fall back to me, Devlin says. Might as well. The traps we said seem to be destroyed. Boom! What was that? Devlin said. Kadase stepped on a trap. Guess I was wrong, Lunar says. How is she? Ria says. Unconscious. Got some burns. She'll be alright, Lunar says. Get back here, Lunar, Ria says. Nah, I'm going to end this. As in front of him came Issei, and Lunar cut off communication. Well, look who decided to show their face. I see you as a souvenir, referring to the fallen angel that belonged to Akano, who rendered unconscious from her injuries. Dark field barrier. Blackout, Issei says. A black dome surrounded them, and Lunar looked around confused as he drew his sword. It was pitch black and he could not see yet. He's a demon. He should be able to see into the night. What the hell is this? Lunar says. This is where I make you useless. Or did you forget that? Issei says. Where are you? Around, Issei says. Shh. As Lunar fell to his knees and his hamstring broke. Where are you? He was frantically looking as he could not see the black void. I told you, I'm around, but let's talk about you, playboy. What? Lunar says. He began sweating. You had the nerve to try and hit on my angel, Issei says. And she sucked me off. Did she tell you that? Maybe I shouldn't have told you. You could taste my... when you kiss her, Lunar says. How unfortunate, Issei replied. What? Lunar says. The other girl you left for a better man, Lunar says. No, Issei replied. As he lost his leg from underneath his knee. Lunar says. That must have hurt, huh? You know, I bet your buddy Arion's girlfriend Akano would be turned on by this. Oh, you don't need that, Issei says. As he lost his hold in battle, which was keeping his arm, causing to fall from the ground. You know you tried to force yourself on someone not very gentlemanly of you, Issei says. That wanted it, Lunar says. What? You know which one, he growled, Lunar says. Well, with how you said it, it makes me think that there were others. Well, no matter. I said you're going to be useless, and she and your other vixen will see you. They won't be afraid of you anymore. As he turned to Lunar onto his back, you want to know something about this technique? What? Lunar said as he could feel the blade tracing him. I developed this after I learned the implement of an evil dragon, Apophysis, power into my own. He used the technique to prevent the Trihexa from interfering in our fight. I have amplified it to is what it is, hence the blackout. You can't see anything, you can't detect anything, but I want you to feel pain. You're going to feel pain, Issei says. No, Lunar says. They're now back at the leader's press box. They were all wondering what was going on in the black dome that transpired. They knew that Issei used this technique earlier, but it was now different. What do you think's happening in there? Zeus says. No clue. But the Red Dragon Emperor is proving himself worthy of his title, Hazy says. 18 says, Serzex, your sister made a mistake. Serzex replied. As he contacted Ajuko, what's the word on the system? Not good. It's under Devlin's control. Either Devlin deactivates it himself or we shut down the system completely, Ajuka says. That would leave us without a winner, Serzex replied. Considering that Issei destroyed a good portion of the area in his first attack, the place would be destroyed if those flames are not sufficed, Ajuka says. Well, Issei has proven to be considerate. It will be a while before the flames have reached the downed contestants, Serzex says. Yes, they're quite fortunate, Ajuka says. Now back at the DXD press box. Like the leaders, they were all wondering what was happening inside the Black Dome as well. Man, Issei's ripping them apart, Sanji said. It's strategic, Sekigahara says, but also that the fallen angel was holding back. It seems he wanted Issei alone, but with so much still around, he didn't want to draw attention from the others. But this technique is something else, Keokeo says. He took Apophysis technique and amplified it. It seems, who knows what's going on in there, but he certainly doesn't want us to see it, Cromcrunch says. We're also seeing the brutality of how he fights, Rosvisa says. It gives us a glimpse of how he fights the Necromorphs, Vali says. No, he has yet to rip off any of their limbs, Sekigahara says. He does that, Sara replied? Yes, according to Minerva, rather use his weapons sometimes, he uses the limbs of the Necromorphs. Jeez, Hercules says. He's certainly not the same guy we met, Gregor replied. The barrier's coming down, Sona says. The gasps of horror were heard, and even some screams, but for Zenobia, she breathed a sigh of relief. Now back on the battlefield. The barrier dissipated, and everyone could see the bloody Issei standing over a mutilated Lunar. Issei flicked his blade and let the blood fly off of it onto the foliage before he turned around and started heading into his final target. The scene looked like a horror movie. There laid Lunar. He had no legs from underneath his knees. His arms were gaunt, but his shoulders and arms were forearms, and biceps were over the place in addition. His chest was slashed a number of times, but he could not see how shallowly breathing. Several minutes later, Kiba came onto the scene. He was the fastest and separated as he knew Issei would go after Lunar. He went to pick up Karase, who was still unconscious. Looking at Lunar, he knew that he could not move him, but if he left, then it was likely that he would die from the flames, so he contacted his team. Devlin, whatever you did, end it, Kiba says. How's Lunar? Devlin said. Oh, on his deathbed. If he doesn't get out of here, Issei hacked him up pretty good, Kiba says. Damn it, Devlin replied. Deactivate your damn technique now, Ria said, as Akia was consoling a sobbing Azia. All right, Devlin said. Moments later, there were specks of light going on throughout the burning jungle. Knight of the Gremory clan has been eliminated. Pawn of the Gremory clan has been eliminated. Queen of the Gremory clan has been eliminated. Queen of the Biel clan has been eliminated. Knight of the Biel clan has been eliminated. Rook for the Gremory clan has been eliminated. And a rook for the Biel clan has been eliminated, Pyamian says. And now to handle one more problem, snapping his fingers, Issei did. For Kiba, he saw a magic circle appear under him. He was expecting an explosion, but got something else. The gravity increased, grounding him in places he could not move. Issei had sat just in case anyone came to check on Lunar, since he didn't believe that Devlin would deactivate his worthless ability on the rating game system. Damn, we have a problem, Kiba says. What now? Devlin says. I'm grounded. Issei activated a gravity seal. Can we get to you? I don't think so. You'll likely run into Issei, Kiba says. Where's Azia? Where's Akia? Azia says. Oh no, stay here, Ria says. Rias, stay here, Devlin says. Yeah, that fiend is out there, Mariyama says. I have to get to Akia. She's my piece, so wait here, Ria says, as she took off running. She was grateful that she didn't wear the school uniform, but rather a red and black suit with some light armor plating. It kept her assets from moving around too much, since she started using some hand-to-hand combat in her repertoire. However, she was too late, as she got into the clearing as Akia's body disappeared. Bishop of the Gremory clan has been eliminated, Pyamian says. Now Rias was face to face with the one she betrayed. A lot of emotions rushed through her head. She remembered the love that she had for his man right in front of her. How she ended their relationship so abruptly, and just such a disgrace, rather than sitting down and talking with him. Although part of her knows that if she did that, he would have listened, and likely they would still be together. Hello, Issei, Rias says. Rias, Issei replied as he wanted a neutral look for her. What did you do to Akia? She had it easy. I only knocked her out, just a chop on the neck, Issei says. I see, Rias replied. Are you the king? Issei says he figured he'd ask, but he already knew the answer. He was actually buying time to see if anyone would go for Kiba. If so, he would detect it, and thus it would change the gravity seal into a laminate seal, blowing up the area, and Kiba was trapped in along with anyone else in the vicinity. No, Rias replied. Then you're not worthy of my time, Issei says. He was prepared to move forward and go past her, but stopped. But by beating you, I eliminate your barrage, leaving me and Devlin, Issei says. You know Devlin can't beat you, Rias says. And yet, you chose him over me. Someone who could fight for you, not hide in the back like a coward, Issei says. I was the one that protected you, Rias, not him. Funny how he didn't give a damn about you until it became convenient. That's not true, Rias. That's not true, Ria said as she activated the power of destruction. But it is, Ria says, activating his dragon aura. He did nothing, yet I did everything. Maybe he would have preferred if it was you married Riser, and then think of that of a scandal. If you cheated, there would be no Phoenix Tears. And if I remember correctly, Riser said that he would be in charge of your clan. Your family would have been ousted from the underworld or worse. I didn't think about that, Ria says. Of course you didn't. But let's get this over with, Issei says, as he scales activated to her Hellfire form, knowing that he would need added protection against the power of destruction. Issei charged forward with a fist, while Rias jumped backwards, sending the two balls of energy at him, but his fist caused an explosion when it made contact with the ground and immediately used his other arm to block. The attacks exploded off his arm and caused him to lose some scales. He reaffirmed that if he used this against Konako and Akano, he likely would not have gotten damaged. However, the power of destruction was something else compared to Senjutsu Flames and Akio's Holy Lightning. Boom! Rias had gone on the offensive, sending multiple attacks into smoke that Issei had to jump to avoid them. She dashed forward, sending a kick towards his head. When he grabbed the leg near to the avoid the power of destruction that coded, only for her to use the other leg and kick him in the stomach. Ah! Issei said as he let go of her leg, moving back his access through the damage. He had a burn mark on his stomach and he growled. He grabbed the charging Rias and slammed her onto the ground and was about to bash her head with his fist. She moved her head to the right, which destroyed part of her hair. Rias punched him in the nether regions. Luckily for Issei, she did not use a fist coated with the power of destruction, but it had needed effort. Oh! Issei said, kneeling over, which Rias used to flip with her top. It forced Issei to block his face, and Rias now began to ring blows on his head and neck region, with the POD fist causing multiple mini explosions every time they made contact with his blocking Hellfire arms. It was already bad enough having to deal with the blow to his balls. He could tell that Drake was laughing at him, calling the situation a case of domestic abuse, and if he and Rias were together. He did not anticipate for Rias to get physical. He thought that she would like Akano, who wore a dispatch quickly because she wasn't physically tough. As his anger rose, he deflected her arms and grabbed the underside of her tights to lift her up as she stood up. His face was incredibly close to her crotch. In a previous life, he would have enjoyed being in this position. However, he slammed her into the ground, knocking the wind out of her completely. Before he was given a chance to capitalize, he turned and blocked with his scales, but was sent flying into the flaming foliage of the jungle as explosion rocked him. Boom! Devlin had caught up to Rias and swung with Graham. Just after Issei had slammed Rias into the ground. Hey, you alright? Devlin said, as he was waiting, keeping his eyes to the direction that Issei flew in. It helped Issei crash through some branches as well as Devlin create a communication circle. I got Rias. Where are you? Devlin says, still making our way to Kiba. Was that the explosion? Murayama says. I got a hit on Issei with Graham. Sent him flying, Devlin says. That's a shock, Kiba replied. It seemed that Rias was able to do some damage to him, as he could see the blackened scales all gone. All around. Unfortunately, he thought they were useless. He did not think of the possibility of something they used to analyze. Where is he? Rias said, as she was wincing from the fighting pain in her back. I sent him flying and he slammed you down, as he tried helping her up. Come on. Ah! As she stood up and her suit was damaged. So we have to get to Kiba. We need to stay together. It's how he got everyone else. All right, Devlin said as he spoke to the other coverage on Kiba's position. Meanwhile, Issei was slow to get up. He got blasted by a Dragon Slayer's sword. His arms were shaking slightly. He was heavily breathing damage. The scales on his arms were damaged. His scars were deepened from the small slashes that Rorik was able to do. The damage that Akano did was aching heavily. He felt stupid trying to tank the hit, but it did work in his favor. Since he was worried about her injured boyfriend, he was able to limit her. Ah, damn it, Issei says, grabbing a scar on his lower half abdomen and then punching to the ground. He dragged himself over to the burning tree and helped himself took to deep breaths. He noticed that his weapons fell out, so he grumbled and proceeded to look forth. By doing this, it would give him more time to try to save Kiba, which he could not help but chuckle at. He could end this all in one fell swoop as he treaded through the burning jungle. Azuya and Murayama were able to get to Kiba, but when he saw them in enough time, "Don't come any closer, it's a gravity seal," Kiba says. What? It increases gravity of the area. If anyone gets caught in it, we won't be able to move. Azuya said, which is effective towards someone like me, who relies on their legs. Lunar walked into it, which only benefited Issei in case someone went looking for him. So I could have been the one trapped, Murayama says, or both of us, which would have been the worst case scenario. Really, Murayama says? Yeah, I don't think Azuya can make it through the jungle on her own. Issei would have picked her up. He's right. Issei's presence troubles my dragons, and I'm certain that Fafnir would have just sabotaged us. We need to figure out how to deactivate the seal and free Kiba-san, as she began to study the seal. So what can I do, Murayama says. Unfortunately, nothing. For the moment, you were never taught the seals, only working your sword skills with Kiba-san. Several minutes later, Devlin and Rias came through the clearing. What's going on? As she sat Rias down, Azuya, healer. Okay, as she moved behind Rias was reaching for her back. It's a gravity seal, but I think it's more complicated than that. Damn, I didn't think he could learn such a complex spell. You think one of those women did? Devlin says, no, it was Ross Visa. Or did you forget that it was her sealing capabilities that helped to seal the Trihexa's movements? Unfortunately, it was able to extract its cores and force various gods and leaders to steel themselves into the isolation barrier filled with the beast. Shh. She would have been useful for this, Devlin says. No, she wouldn't, Rias replies. What are you talking about? Because of her, Kiba's trapped right now. Yeah, but Rosvisa wouldn't not have been able to grow under me, Rias says. What are you saying? Moriyama says, you've seen how Secret Vera is able to use Rosvisa, bring out all of her potential. I could have never done that, giving a sad smile. Even though she tricked me, she was right about being traded away. Thank you, Azia. As she stood up and trying to catch her breath. So what do we do? Devlin says. You're the leader. You should be asking yourself that question. Look, Rias, it's not the time to bitch around, Devlin says. Okay, I told us to stay put. If Akia wanted to get herself killed, so be it. You didn't need to run off after her. The only thing that you provided was a distraction for Azia and Moriyama to get to Kiba and... Get down, Rias says. A fireball came out of the foliage, and it was hard to see since it was coming from the bully foliage of the jungle. Boom! It wasn't a regular fireball, but the one that from Issei's hellfire, hence it was explosive nature. The splash damage sent Azia and Moriyama into the gravity seal, along with Rias crashing into the tree. Re-injuring her back, Devlin also flew into the tree as well, dropping Graham as well. They heard the crashing trees fire erupting as Issei with the Ifrit presented emerged. Finally, you're all here, Issei says. Devlin got up to charge at him, but stopped as Ifrit roared flames in his direction, sending him to stop. You're right. That is more than just a gravity seal, and you're right. I did learn it from Rosvisa. I told you that pervert you all knew is gone. The Opie dragon is dead. All that remains is me, Issei said. He sensed a surge of energy as the skies darkened. Rias had amassed a great amount of energy from the power of destruction he had to facepalm because he was in the battle and he was monologuing, which gave her needed time to build up her energy. Give it up, Issei, Rias says, as she held a crimson black energy. And why would I even do that? Issei says, because it's over, Devlin replied. Is it? From where you're standing, you two are the only ones still standing. What? Devlin says, only to now see Azia and Moriyama down in gravity seal, struggling with the increasing gravity on their bodies. Now then, the gravity seal is not just a gravity seal. It's a landmine or a bomb. You can attack, but I'm not sure how well they would fare in that regard, Issei says. It made Rias falter a bit as she was worried about the safety of her pieces. Don't listen to him, Rias. Just blast the bastard already, so we can go home, Devlin said as she grabbed Graham. Do it, Rias, Issei said. He spoke calmly. From the distance, she looked into his eyes. She had a feeling that it didn't matter what she did. Issei was going to win. It was in his blood to not back down. She looked into her piece's eyes and saw Kiba giving the nod. When Moriyama was afraid, she knew that they would get medical attention. She nodded as well. She looked at Azia, who had grown, and gave a nod to Rias as well. They were willing to risk themselves for her happiness, which then brought back to her former lover's eyes. There was a time when she wanted to wake up and see those eyes gazing back at her. However, her actions ruined that dream. She was surprised that his eyes showed no hatred towards her. He was curious about what she would do, but cautious. She held back a sob, but while she was contemplating, Devlin decided to strike, distracting her from the warmth of Issei's eyes. Issei brought out a sigh, blocking the slash from Graham, but the destructive energy of the blade brought him down to a knee. Rias noticed that a beast hovering around Issei turned to face Devlin when Issei took his eyes off her, indicating that it did not act independently. She used that moment to unleash her attack. Extinguished star! Sending the spear at Issei. Ifrit roared as the spear used the body to shield Issei from the oncoming attack. Devlin saw this as a chance to escape, but Issei would not let him leave unharmed. Quick drawing Moriyama, Issei sliced off Devlin's forearm, making him drop Graham. Ah, Devlin said. Since he couldn't turn back around, Issei kicked him in the back, sending him flying at the safety of Ifrit's claws as Rias' attack collided with Ifrit, who let out a roar of pain. Boom! The impact shook the stadium, as Ajuka was trying to get things stabilized while the crowd was shocked at the magnitude of the attack. Now back at the leader's press box. Mika and Groa were impressed with the attacks as they remembered how Rias grew under their roof. They had to comment on Zectodius and Valena for her growth. She has grown, you know, Miki says as she looked at Valena. I'd like to think she learned from some things from staying with you, so thank you, Valena said. They didn't announce Issei's name, Zectodius said. I think she realized that, Issei replied. It's the endgame now, Haruto said, bouncing Lilith. Now back on the battlefield. The damage from her attack made her worry, but no names were called, so she called out to them. Kiba, Azia, Moriyama, speak to me! She stayed in the air looking around in the aftermath. She was using her wings to flap out a way to try to see if anything on the ground. We're good, Devlin says, as he heard an arm around Kiba as they were making their way to coughing Moriyama and Azia. had to smile because her attack at least destroyed Issei's seal, but she realized that they did not announce them as the winner. She steeled her gaze and flew towards where the attack hit. She looked around wondering where Issei was. Her guard was up, but that didn't help for what came next. Ah! Issei, tackling Rias and crashing into a right tree, making her smack against it, screaming her in pain. Ah! Gritting her teeth, she used a pod-infused fist and drove it into Issei's side, right when Akano made her mark. Ah! Issei said as he fell into the ground nape of her neck, before he gripped her neck and made her look at it and lifted his head back up. Rias! Devlin said as he heard her scream. Hearing the yell, Issei realized that her neck and raised his hand in the direction of Devlin's yell, and the seal became active again. He gripped on her neck again, making her look at him again. It forced Devlin and the others to stop as they saw the seal become active. Rias could see it. She was worried and there was nothing she could do. Tears spilled from her eyes. She couldn't save her pieces like she thought she had. Please, Rias said. She whimpered as she looked at Issei. I'll marry you. Just don't hurt them, Rias says. It reminded Issei when she pleaded for his safety, when they faced off against Riser. It made Issei glimpse of the woman that he once fell for a couple years ago. For Rias, she was able to see the glimpse of Issei that she had fallen for. You think I want that? To marry you, Issei says. Sorry, but no. And if it makes you feel better, I won't, he whispered back, coating a small amount of dragon aura to his arm and swiftly gave a blow to Rias' temple, knocking her out. He stepped back as her body was enveloped in light. Seeing her face, he saw that he had spilled tears. They were the tears of gratitude as she knew that Issei was the man of his word. She would have said thank you if he did not knock her out so quickly. Rias Grimory. The Grimory clan has been eliminated. As the result, the Grimory Proj is no longer able to battle. Moriyama, Kiba, and Azia were enveloped in light as they were taken off the battlefield with their king. Another time, Issei said. He mouthed in Kiba's direction. Kiba could only smile as he nodded back, and Kiba repeated his words back to him before he was taken away. They left Devlin trapped into the gravity seal as Issei shrugged over to his fallen Graham. He gritted his teeth and picked up the demonic blade. Its dragon slaying aura rejected him, but he pushed through with the immense pain. He strapped it to his waist, but he was greatly weakened from trying to lift it. I'll get you a wielder soon, Issei says, he whispered to the blade. Standing up in defiance, he picked up Devlin's severed forearm and turned to the owner that threw it at his feet. Devlin was scared and confused. He didn't know what to do. He was trapped and he stared at the man that had bested him. Devlin could see that Issei's left shoulder was off, likely dislocated. When he tried to slash at Issei with Graham, its destructive energy caused the blow back on his shoulder. He could see the scarring of the two attacks, first Akano's, then the deep burn marks, and the first size hole in those left abdomen. It wasn't bleeding, as Issei had cauterized the wound. The slash marks from Rorik all over his body when he didn't defend all of Rorik's strikes like he thought. He hoped the Dragonkin could take it. The scratches on his face from Konoko's claws whipping at him. He had some burn marks and bruises on his forearms from Rias' power of destruction combusting with his hellfire flames, along with him deflecting the Toki-enhanced blows from Konoko. And then there was one, Issei says. Lost, Devlin says. There it is, Issei said as he looked at Devlin. There is what? Devlin said, gulping abruptly as Issei chuckled emotionally. I enjoy the look of confusion when an inferior being meets a higher power, Issei says. Devlin could see it. He was in fear of being that Issei was referring to. It was never like the Issei like he thought. He never should have gone for Rias when she had set his dragon by her side. It also made him wonder if Issei was this strong. Who knows how much stronger their opponents would be? How did you beat us? Devlin said. Simple. I heard your plan, so I hunted down your trackers first. Coming at me twos did know you good, Issei says. So Kiba was right. We were the prey, Devlin says. Correct. Plus the jungle in my domain. It made things easier for me as I know the terrain. If it was anywhere else, the results still would have been the same. I still would have used the landscape attack to demolish the playing field and give advantage to the giving smoke, negating your filters from the tracking me from above. I would have been able to track